bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Good morning to you. Pop sensation Liam Payne dies at the age of 31.
The former One Direction member is reported to have fallen from a hotel balcony in Argentina on Wednesday afternoon.
Well, tributes flooding in for the hitmaker who played a pivotal role in Britain's biggest boy band.
Tonight, Conservative leadership hopefuls Robert Jenrick and Kemi Badenoch go head-to-head in a GB News special, but to either have what it takes to lead the embattled Tories.
That's as Scottish business leaders issue a new plea to Labour not to increase alcohol duty for fears of it crippling the industry.
And Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson joins us this morning as she launches a new funding programme as part of ambitious plans to open 3,000 new nurseries.
King Charles and Queen Camilla head down under in their most significant overseas tour since his cancer diagnosis.
Nearly 1 million Brits living with dementia could soon be aided by an AI robot specialising in Alzheimer's care.
And new government plans will offer unemployed Brits discounted driving lessons. This morning, we debate whether the jobless should get freebies.
And later this morning, Britain's most decorated Paralympian, Sarah Storey, divulges the secrets to her success. And also in sport, the New England manager Thomas Tuchel's been saying all the right things, but doesn't start his job until January. In sailing, the America's Cup is not over yet, as Great Britain won 2 races yesterday. And more cycling, Britain have won their first track World Championship gold since 2008.
Following a gloomy Wednesday with outbreaks of rain for many of us, Thursday's looking much brighter. I'll have the full forecast coming up very soon.
It's just gone 6 o'clock. I'm Stephen Dixon.
I'm Ellie Costello, and this is GB News Breakfast.
I just want to start with something which I think could be a campaign for us.
Oh, right. Yeah.
I do like a campaign.
We do.
It's about Walthamstow ambulance station. That's in London. They rescued a kitten 16 years ago, and they called it Defib.
Right.
And it's lived in the station ever since.
Oh, right.
So it's the station cat. And now they've got a new boss who's come into Walthamstow ambulance station, and he's decided, or she's decided, that the cat is to be evicted.
You are kidding me.
No.
Really?
You can't evict the cat?
For health and safety reasons.
Oh, the world's gone mad.
So I think we should start a campaign. It's actually all over X, Twitter.
Oh,
and I spotted it this morning. So Defib the cat. Should it be allowed to continue living after 16 years at Walthamstow ambulance station?
I understand why it's called Defib, but it's just not. I'm not very happy about the name.
It's not a lovely cat
Sorry,
name, is it?
Defib. You know.
No, I just think, especially with the work that they do, it must be so distressing and difficult. And then that would be your therapy cat.
But is there more to it? Is the cat getting involved? Are they shouting defib and then the cat's jumping on and everything? And it's like, no, that's not what we want, right? Because it could get uncomfortable.
Maybe
but I think that's really, really
He's saying
unfortunate.
it's health and safety.
Oh, for
and all that. I mean,
come
just
on.
get a grip.
It's a cat, for goodness.
I mean, the cat's been there longer than probably most people have worked there.
They've worked there.
Longer than most people's careers.
Yeah.
So I think we should start a proper...
defib to stay.
A proper petition on that one.
I don't live that far away, so maybe I'll start with placards outside.
I think you should stop by and have a very stern word.
I will. I'll have it. Well, I'll start with a quiet word, and then if that doesn't go well, then I'll start with the stern.
We can up the ante.
What's wrong with people?
I know.
We're going to put it in a home at the age of 16.
Oh, people are just so serious these days.
It's awful.
How long do cats live? I mean, Defib probably doesn't have that long left.
Well, 4 or 5 years, maybe. Or
Another
less.
4 or 5 years?
Yeah, maybe.
Oh, they live quite a long time.
Well, it depends how many lives it's had, though, doesn't it?
Well, yeah.
Well, justice for Defib, that's what I say.
Yeah. Right. we're going to crack on with what has been tragic news that you're probably waking up to. And that is that One Direction star Liam Payne has died at the age of just 31. That was after falling from a balcony of a hotel in Buenos Aires.
Yes, fans across the world have come together to pay tribute to the star who helped define a generation of pop music.
Well, he'd been to Argentina to support former bandmate Niall Horan, who was on tour there and had been posting social media until right before the shocking accident.
Well, joining us now is showbiz journalist Hayley Palmer. Good to see you this morning, Hayley, but such sad and shocking news that many people will be waking up to this morning.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, I'm a One Direction fan myself, and I still can't believe what we're actually saying here. I mean, if you watch The X Factor, you know, he came through. He actually had 2 auditions on The X Factor. Simon Cowell told him to go away the first time because he was too young, but it was kind of meant to be because this band formed. And, you know, they've had massive success and their fans are absolutely diehard. So to wake up this morning and hear this news must be so incredibly sad. Now, I do know that he did suffer with ADHD. I know that he had kidney problems. I do know that he had been through a hard time because his ex was taking legal action. And I also know he parted ways with his management. So I know he had been going through a hard time. I do feel like his last post on Snapchat, I thought there was a sadness in his eyes when I watched it. So I don't know if he was going through a hard time because we don't actually know, you know, nothing's been actually said what has happened exactly yet.
But it was, I mean, it's fair to say he's had a difficult few years and some drink issues and all the rest of it, which is what you get with these pop stars, which is the tragedy of it all, that people want this fame, but it often leads to so much heartache.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think on the outside it all looks, you know, so glamorous, and the X Factor, it's such a hype, and back in the day as well, it was massive, and, you know, he came out of the band and had a solo career, and, you know, I do feel like maybe Harry had more of a better solo career. So you don't know what's going on behind closed doors, but you're right, Stephen, I think it's a lot of pressure, and he was very open about his problems with alcohol and mental health as well. So you just don't know what's going on. And for me personally, I wonder if there is enough support when you've come off a big show like X Factor. You know, still these years later, it must take a toll. So to see this sad news, we don't know exactly what is going on. I'm sure it's going to come out hour by hour. But at the moment, we just know that it is absolutely heartbreaking.
It is, Hayley, and you can't help but think about his family and his son. He's got a 7-year-old son, hasn't he, with Cheryl, and also his former bandmates. I mean, how must they be feeling? He was in Argentina to support Niall Horan, wasn't he?
That's right, and I feel like when you've come together on a big show like that, you know, you are like family. You really are. That is your family, and us watching it, we feel like we know the band because you've seen everything in the papers. It's been splashed all over the papers. You're right, when he had that very high-profile relationship with Cheryl, you know, they were front page all the time. So you feel like you've got to know them. So the band members, I can't imagine how they must be feeling. And you're right, he was over there to actually watch Niall and go and support him. And there was videos that I've watched of him over at the concert. So I have no idea. I know he had 2 older sisters. I know he's very close to his family. I haven't personally interviewed him, but I know a lot of my friends that are showbiz reporters have, and they've said he always had time for them. He always was very down to earth. And the biggest thing was he was a family man. And I actually saw a clip of him where they said to him, how would you like to be remembered? It was actually a question that was thrown to him. And he said, I just want to be remembered as a nice guy. And he really was a nice guy. And that's how he came across. Very genuine, very laid back, extreme talent, incredible voice. I remember his first audition, and Simon Cowell actually said, wow, you know, they spotted the star in him. Amazing talent. He also did a lot of the songwriting for One Direction, and at times he took the front lead. So what a talent and what a loss, and just devastating.
It's interesting, isn't it, looking at these live pictures now from the hotel, that I mean, there will be people watching who think, well, this isn't my era, this isn't my type of music. But what we have to bear in mind is just how big One Direction came. I mean, globally, they were massive, which is quite unusual these days. I
totally agree. A lot of people go on X Factor and you're like, oh, what's happened to them now? But, I'd just like to point out, One Direction, they got American Music Awards, 7 nominated for 10, Billboard, 6 nominated for 12 Brit Awards, winning 7. They won an MTV VMA Award, huge global award ceremonies. They won 2018 Choice Awards, nominated for 31. So they had mega success. They were mega stars, and they still had a lovely bond between them, which I think is really nice in a band, because often you hear of fallouts and stuff, but, the fact that he was over there supporting his ex-bandmate, was a really lovely thing. But, yeah, it's just very devastating. And I know a lot of people have tweeted. Charlie Puth has posted a photo on his story. I am shocked right now. Liam was always so kind to me. He was one of the first major artists I got to work with. I cannot believe he's gone. Paris Hilton described the news as so upsetting, sending love and condolences to friends and family, amongst many people that have woken up to this shocking news this morning.
Yeah, and Dermot O'Leary has also paid tribute, hasn't he? Who was, of course, the X Factor presenter at the time when Liam was auditioning.
Yes, I can imagine for the X Factor family, for Simon Cowell, he put the band together, and I think the fact that they had so much success really just shows what talent that they saw in the band, because to just put a singer out there, I think is one thing to have success, but to keep a band together and have, like I say, all those awards, I think is absolutely incredible. I love their songs personally, I still do, and I loved Liam's solo career as well. So, like I say, I'm still in shock to even report this.
OK. Hayley, good to see you this morning.
Thanks, Hayley.
Thanks very much indeed.
It's such shocking news, isn't it? 31 is absolutely no age.
This is the problem. These people that go from the world of showbiz often go at a young age, don't they? It's this tragedy of success at a very early age, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I mean, he catapulted to fame, didn't he, at 16? And he did an interview a few years ago where he said, if I'd have understood how big things were going to get, I would have maybe been more prepared. He wasn't prepared at all. He says, I wouldn't change it for the world, but I wasn't prepared for it. So,
it's a shame.
Shocking news, and our
Very
thoughts,
sad.
obviously, with his family and his young son as well.
Now, the budget later this month is expected to be the biggest tax raiser in history. Up to £35 billion worth of tax rises are on the cards.
Well, it's in a bid to protect Rachel Reeves' commitment to end austerity, and follows reports that several government departments have written to the Prime Minister to express concerns about cuts ahead of the budget.
Cut alcohol duty and back Scotch whisky. That's the message from Scottish business leaders ahead of the October budget. Rachel Reeves is being urged to lower the duty in spirits after Jeremy Hunt increased it by 10.1% last August, the biggest rise of its kind in 40 years, topping up the tax burden on a bottle of Scotch to over 70%. HMRC says the move denied the public purse nearly £300 million in its first year. Despite the tax jump, pub owner Mike Henderson says minimum unit pricing has put blended whisky back on the menu.
A bottle that did cost £13, £14 is now nearly £20. So people are willing to come into a pub. You can get a malt, £5, £5 in it for a malt, and £2.60 for a blend.
It's worth saying that this isn't just any old pub. Camera, the campaign for Real Ale, has crowned the Hill End Tavern as Scotland's best pub 2 years running. The biggest change felt here is from Jeremy Hunt's draft relief, also introduced last August, making pub pints that little bit cheaper. With the pub quiz about to swing into action, do these punters A, stick with Real Ale at a knockdown price, or B, stump up extra for that pricey chaser?
It's a cheeky chaser, maybe on occasion. Mostly it's just the ales. It's a good pint, it's a good session pint, and it's a great price, so I'm happy with the ales.
Most of the time we drink beer, actually, but if we win, we might go into a wee whisky as a celebratory drink.
Not changed my habits at all. Just we order what we want, basically, whether it's whisky or ale. So.
The Scotch Whisky Association has appealed to Rachel Reeves to reverse the economic damage done by her predecessor. But with UK alcohol deaths on the rise and at a 15-year high here in Scotland, It shouldn't be surprising if yet another cash-strapped chancellor sees the drinks industry as easy pickings. Tony Maguire, GB News.
Well, joining us from West Yorkshire to talk about the budget and, indeed, the big debate tonight, of course, former Mayor of Middlesbrough, political commentator Andy Preston. Good to see you, Andy. Look, in terms of the budget, we're talking about an awful lot of money that has to be raised. And we've been saying for a while, you know, is there expectation management at play here when we've been told just how bad it's going to be, or is that going to be the reality?
Hi, morning, everyone. I think that there was an element of expectation management, but there was also an element of gross stupidity, wasn't there, where Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer seeking to, as all new governments do, to try and blame the last lot, made it sound so bad and so dreadful that consumer sentiment fell off the charts. People stopped spending, people stopped investing to some extent, and that actually reduced the amount of tax they're going to get in. So really naive errors by those two. They're scrabbling around now. They've ruled out the vast majority of possible ways of raising money. So they're scrabbling around looking at smaller areas where they can raise little bits here and there. And it's a really tough thing. My personal view is that taxes absolutely are going up, and they would have gone up whether the Tories had won the election or Labour did. And what we'll see play out is just wherever they'll get the least kickbacks. So looking at, for example, duty on whiskey is a really clever way of doing it, because it will deter some of the problem drinking that we have. It'll push people into cheaper brands, which doesn't really affect anyone. And although it'll be unpopular, it'll be the least unpopular option. So to summarise, what Rachel Reeves has to do is find the least unpopular ways of raising the money that she undoubtedly has to do to fulfil her pledges.
Andy, I'm not sure if you agree, but I can't remember the last time prior to a budget that there has been this much nervousness and fear surrounding what's to come. And reports this morning that several government departments have written to the Prime Minister to express concerns about cuts to their departments ahead of the budget.
Ellie, that is 100% right. I was on a call yesterday with a friend who works in bringing business deals together. He's like a corporate finance guy, and he's like matching people who want to buy a business and people who want to sell a business. He's done that for years. And he said the budget pessimism out there has been catastrophic. In the short term, it's actually been good, because a lot of people that are so fearful of the future have rushed to sell their businesses. But the numbers of buyers is shrinking very fast. He said he has never seen in his 20-year career as much pessimism about a budget. And I stress again, this is all the doing of Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer with their narrative about how awful things are. And the job of government, you know, is to talk about how things are challenging, but create optimism about the future. All they've done is say things are really awful and they're going to stay awful. A really bad message.
Yeah, but are too many people jumping on the negative bandwagon? I mean, the capital gains thing, the capital gains tax is going to go up. There's no doubt about that. The narrative has been, well, that's going to damage investment in the UK. It's going to damage economic growth. The Institute for Public Policy Research has published a paper saying that's nonsense. And in all the work that they've done, it says people would not be, the majority of people they've spoken to, will not be put off investing by a rise in CGT.
OK, Stephen, I think there's an element of truth in that. I think we have to be careful with the IPPR. They are left-leaning, so they're naturally inclined to be sympathetic to Labour policies and also believe in raising taxes intrinsically. So I'd be sceptical of their research, but I do agree that there is room to raise capital gains tax somewhat and put us in line actually with the rest of Europe and most G7 nations. Our capital gains tax is a little bit lower, so there's a bit of room to raise it up. Every single tax rise you bring in has an opposite effect. So it will deter investment, it will stop spending, and it's about finding the things that you can tweak with as little negative impact as possible. And I personally believe that smallish increases in capital gains tax might not have too bad an impact. So I think they're probably onto something, but be wary of their research. They're left-leaning and Labour sympathetic.
Preston, good to see you. Thank you very much indeed.
Well, don't forget, at 7 o'clock tonight, Robert Jenrick and Kemi Badenoch will be battling it out on GB News. hosted by our political editor, Chris Hope, to decide who is going to be the leader of the Conservative Party come the start of November.
And it will be followed by a watch party with Patrick Christie's special audience. All the analysis, all the reaction. Lots to look forward to tonight.
Now it's 19 minutes past 6. Let's have a look at some of the other stories coming into the newsroom.
UN peacemakers say an Israeli tank has fired at one of its watchtowers in southern Lebanon. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, has held an emergency meeting on increasing support for Gaza after the US threatened to take away some military support unless Israel boosted aid within 30 days.
Relatives of the Menendez brothers, Lyle and Eric, have gathered in Los Angeles to call for their release. The pair are currently serving life sentences for killing their parents in 1989. A renewed interest in their case comes after a Netflix series detailing their crimes reached an international audience. Prosecutors have announced they're reviewing new evidence.
And bison cattle introduced to Blean Woods in Kent to help tackle the climate crisis have welcomed 2 new calves, bringing the herd's total to 8. The project, run by Kent Wildlife Trust and Wildwood Trust, aims to naturally manage the woodland, restoring the ecosystems and supporting biodiversity.
Oh, it's nice to have bison.
I know.
Like that. I think it's great. It's what
They look
irritates
quite
me
cute.
is when they say, well, it's all to help the environment. And yet all the eco people go on about is the fact that cattle, because of methane releases and all the rest of it, are damaging the environment.
Yeah.
So make your mind up.
I know.
Are they good, bad or indifferent?
Let us know.
I think it's nice to have them there,
I
personally.
know, and they're
but
very cute. Look at the baby calves. Very cute.
I don't know.
Mixed messaging.
Sometimes it is mixed messaging. Sometimes it gets right on my pip end,
I know.
as my grandma would have said. Right, shall we see what the weather's going to do?
Let's. Here's Aidan McGibbon.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers. Sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there, and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. A much brighter day today for most of us. Sunny spells far and wide. Still some showers around, particularly across some western parts. But actually, for many, it's a dry start to the day. We've got the last of Wednesday's rain clearing from the Northern Isles, and just some showers following in for Northern Ireland, parts of southern and western Scotland, Wales and the southwest. These showers will be hit and miss. In between, there'll be some sunshine. The best of the sunshine across the Midlands, eastern and southeastern England, and it will feel mild once again, but not quite as mild as Wednesday, so highs of 16 to 19 Celsius. There is the chance of some thicker cloud and some outbreaks of rain moving into the far southeast by the end of the day, and we'll still have those showers affecting parts of central and western Scotland as well. But as you can see, plenty of clear spells as we go into the evening. Northern Ireland, mixture of clear spells and showers. 1 or 2 showers for Cumbria, parts of Wales and the southwest, but plenty of fine weather through central and eastern parts of the UK. Now, with clear skies widely overnight, it's going to be a cooler night compared with recent nights. A few mist and fog patches are possible, and some patchy cloud, particularly across western parts, especially of the hills. Otherwise, for many, it's a fine start to Friday. Temperatures of 8 to 12 Celsius typically first thing, and feeling pleasant enough in any early sunshine. But things are going to turn more unsettled. Initially for Northern Ireland and western Scotland, we'll see rain and wind arrive through the morning. The rain moves into Wales and the southwest, the rest of Scotland and eventually northern England, whilst the winds strengthen across many western and northwestern parts. 60-mile-an-hour wind gusts for northwest Scotland, but it stays sunny with lighter winds in the southeast.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Still to come, we're going to be getting a preview of the King and Queen's trip down under, the first major royal tour since the King's cancer diagnosis. That's next.
Conservative MPs have finally chosen their top 2 for the leadership. And now it's over to the members. Join me, Christopher Hope, tonight as Kevin Badenoch and Robert Jenrick are quizzed by Conservative Party members and myself at our GB News leadership event.
And afterwards, join me, Patrick Christys, with a live studio audience and a star panel as we discuss what it means for the Conservative Party and what it means for you. Decision time, the race to lead, from 7 p.m. tonight. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss My Big Opinion. Mark Meets and My Take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Conservative MPs have finally chosen their top two for the leadership. And now, it's over to the members. Join me, Christopher Hope, tonight as Kevin Badenoch and Robert Jenrick are quizzed by Conservative Party members and myself at our GB News leadership event.
And afterwards, join me, Patrick Christys, with a live studio audience and a star panel as we discuss what it means for the Conservative Party and what it means for you. Decision time, the race to lead, from 7 p.m. tonight. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
.27. Now, the King and Queen leave the UK today. They're heading down under for their first Australian tour as our monarchs.
Well, the tour's already been hit with a few snags. Every state leader has declined an invitation to a reception for their Majesties, and reportedly Republicans are planning a series of protests.
Well, our royal correspondent Cameron Walker is travelling to Australia to cover the visit and sent this report ahead of the trip.
We want to put our best foot forward and show the King and Queen what we've got.
History in the making. The first time a reigning king will step foot on Australia's shores. A royal tour that has been months in the planning. Behind those walls, the royal household have made final preparations for a trip which arguably could be the most important of King Charles's reign so far. His first visit to Australia as the country's head of state.
Standing at last on Australian soil.
The King's mother, the late Queen Elizabeth, visited Australia 16 times during her long reign, and citizens, according to 9 News correspondent Jessica Millward, had a deeply personal connection with her.
It's impossible to overstate the sadness and the outpouring of grief that we saw across Australia when she passed away. And they love Charles. They've grown up watching him. Overwhelmingly, I do feel that the mood will be one of excitement, and we want to put our best foot forward and show the King and Queen what we've got.
The King's medical team have allowed him to pause his weekly cycle of cancer treatment while he's away in Australia and Samoa. Although Buckingham Palace declined to comment, it's understood the programme of engagements have been designed in such a way to allow him time to rest and recover, making sure he's on top form for those engagements. A doctor will also be part of his travelling entourage. The trip will see Their Majesties immerse themselves in Australian culture, including a community barbecue and meeting Indigenous communities. But not everyone is happy Their Majesties are coming to Australia, and Republicans are already branding it the farewell tour of Oz, despite referendum plans being put on hold by the government. But Nathan Hansford from the Australian Republic movement believes King Charles will be removed sooner rather than later.
We've always known that there was no referendum planned on an Australian Republic in this term of government, but we're most hopeful that we can get that back on the table in front of the government for them to think about it, at least in the next term of government or the one after that. We're certainly not thinking that this is 10 years away.
But the Australian Monarchist League questions the alternative to a reigning monarch.
I'm simply waiting for the Republicans to produce an idea that really is something more than vague platitudes and appeals to emotional arguments. I don't think anyone will ever really be able to top constitutional monarchy. I'm a monarchist, and that's what I like about our system.
Republicans may have dismissed the upcoming visits before the royal flight leaves UK airspace, but it's up to Australian citizens to judge whether King Charles III is a worthy head of state. Cameron Walker, GB News.
Well, Cameron Walker will be following the royals throughout the week here on GB News Breakfast as he brings us the latest from Down Under.
Now, time is ticking on your chance to win £36,000 cash in the Great British Giveaway. Less than 2 weeks. A week tomorrow, actually.
Oh, you're across the dates.
I am always across the dates.
He's got them marked in his diary, as should you.
Yeah, week tomorrow. So anyway, make sure you don't miss out. Here are the details.
There's only 2 weeks. Good luck.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In South Yorkshire, the A635 is closed between Hickleton and Mar after an accident. There are a number of road closures and disruption to trains across parts of the northwest of England because of flooding. On Merseyside, the A506 is closed eastbound on Valley Road at Fazakerley towards junction 6 of the M57. In Wrexham, the A539 is closed each way. Ruaben and Shropshire, the A49 is closed between Marshbrook and Craven Arms. Train services aren't running between Crewe, neither Chester or Runcorn. Buses replace trains between Rock Ferry and both Chester and Ellesmere Port. And there are delays of up to an hour with some cancelled trains between Crewe and Shrewsbury, between Wrexham General and Shrewsbury, and between Wrexham General and Bidston. And in Bedfordshire, the A421 is closed eastbound south of Bedford off the A6 for an investigation.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Serving some of the most talked about food in Chelsea, executive head chef of Number 50 Cheney, Ian Smith, has created a range of menus with a hint of the homeland, using the finest British ingredients sourced by trusted suppliers. Ian Smith was head chef at Jason Atherton's Social Eating House and spent time in the kitchens of the Galvin brothers. Ian joins me now to tell more of the story. Tell me about Number 50 Cheney.
Yes, so we are a beautiful restaurant down in a corner of Chelsea on the Embankment with an amazing team. And we are really pride ourselves on, being an affordable luxury that people, really are wanting to return to week in, week out.
What's the view from your restaurant?
We can see the Embankment, the Thames, and Albert Bridge, which is very nice.
Very nice.
Actually lit up. Very romantic.
And tell me a little bit about your philosophy. I was talking there about having a touch of the homeland, British food, seasonal food.
Yes. Yeah, I think for me, great cooking is, with simplicity on finest ingredients, cooked with simplicity, and ultimately, there to be enjoyed through... Yeah, sorry.
No, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was going to say, it starts as a young person's business. You went into it very young, didn't you? 15?
Yes. Yeah, so I was 15. I sat in my parents' bedroom, called the Ritz, the Dorchester and Claridge's, and very luckily, a man on the end of the phone, 21 years ago, sent me on to a college course called the Specialised Chef Scholarship. 3 days later, I had a Ritz stamp letter through the post, and off me and my parents went, and luckily I got on the course.
And how old were you when you got your first responsibility, would you say?
I think the biggest responsibility in my career is today. Leading number 50 Cheney.
GB News, the People's Channel.
At 6:35, time for the sport with Paul Coit. Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
So, we've got a German.
We do.
In charge of the England team.
I think I'm OK with it. I think I'm all right. I think most people
will be all
get
right
used
if
to
he
it.
wins.
Well, this is it. It's Thomas Tuchel, of course, is now taken over as the England manager. We spoke about it yesterday. It was announced at Wembley yesterday afternoon. So I think all that matters is that if England start winning things, people are even saying, do the deal with the devil just to win things, to have a foreign manager. Well, we've tried it twice before and it hasn't worked out. Thomas Tuchel, I think everybody's looking at it, and every professional that I've spoken to as well, just going, yeah, I think it's going to be OK. There's a few things. One of them is... and we'll hear from him in just a second. I'll play something that he said yesterday about the fact... How do you feel about everybody saying that, you're not English? And he apologised.
For not being English.
For having a German passport. Well, that can soon be remedied, can't it? And also, now this is the tricky one, and I do feel for him on this one, because after what's happened with Lee Carsley not singing the national anthem, everybody's going, so, what are you going to do? You're going to sing the national anthem, which is, when you're a German...
Well, that's slightly different, I suggest.
I think you can't expect him to stand there and sing them. Do you think?
No.
It's a tricky one.
It's a rivalry that goes way back.
It really is. It really is. And also the fact that he's just been given an 18-month contract as well.
Yeah.
Which is short, really, in football terms. So there's one side of looking at it thinking, that's not showing much confidence, is it? But it takes him through to the World Cup, and should things go well, then obviously that's going to be extended if he wants it to be, because maybe he'll think that this is my first... By the way, here comes a word I've never used before. My first foray.
Oh.
How was that?
Very good.
Yeah. First foray into international football, away from club football. Anyway, here he is, pretty much answering everything that we just spoke about. Thomas Tuchel using that position.
I'm sorry, I just have a German passport, but I can just tell them, and maybe all of these supporters also felt my passion for the English Premier League, my passion for the country. We are focused on the qualification and on the World Cup.
So will you sing the national anthem? Does an England manager need to?
I have not made my decision yet. I want to be very honest with you. No matter what decision I will take, we have a bit of time until March. I will always show my respect to my new role.
There. I mean, press are horrible, aren't they? Journalists are the worst.
Will you be singing the national anthem?
Will you be singing the national anthem? It's like, what's the right answer? You can't get it right or wrong anyway.
He
handled it well.
Yeah,
I think he did
did
too.
handle it well. He was saying the right things, wasn't he, in the sense he said he's proud to be England manager. It's a real privilege. He can't wait to get started. I mean, the enthusiasm's there.
He's thought of higher in this country than he is in Germany for some reason, and Bild, who are the main newspaper over in Germany, they're giving him a bit of a hard time, and they're saying, I see, because England is in so much trouble, they're so desperate, they're turning to us, which is fair enough, really. Yeah. But, anything to win, we do desperately need to win a trophy. And if he's the one, then all good.
Talking about winning, just to finish off this bit, can we have a look at the America's Cup? I thought we were going to be in a much better position than this.
Did you?
Yeah.
Well, we're going to speak to Alec again tomorrow, live from Barcelona. And America's Cup, very briefly, there we are. So there we are off to Barcelona, where they're doing... I'd try and explain everything that's going on, but obviously you can see that's the British fun at the top there, because you can see by the flag. It's the race. It's the first of 7 between Britain and New Zealand. There's Sir Ben Ainslie, who's the captain of Britannia. And they won 2 races. There were 2 races yesterday. They were 4-0 down. It's got it back to 4-2. First to 7. More races tomorrow. So who knows? Could be the first time in 173 years that Britain could win the America's Cup.
First time ever, isn't it? First time ever.
First time ever. And we invented it. And it used to be around the Isle of Wight. And I still, for the life of me, cannot understand how we never, ever won this.
I know.
Well, fingers crossed.
Now's the time.
Yeah.
Paul, thank
Fingers
you.
crossed.
See you later on.
Thank you.
Do stay with us. Still to come, we'll be going through the papers. That's next.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're talking catchphrases and jingles because, of course, instantly recognisable and sometimes a little annoying in the case of the Go Compare one, perhaps. An iconic advertising jingle can stay in your head all day and sometimes stand the test of time. Sound expert and music designer for some of the world's most renowned companies, Michael Boumendil, joins us now. Good morning, Michael. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
First of all, what is the secret ingredient, the secret recipe for a hit jingle that stands the test of time over the decades?
Well, I have to say that secret 100 years ago is not the secret today, because today all the brands are using music. So the first secret is to stand out, is to make something different, to do something interesting. The other thing I believe is to do something that is true to the brand that is talking to you. You know, it's not only about the memorability, but it's about telling something about the brand. You know, when I hear you, your voice, your tone of voice says not only who you are, I can recognize your voice, but it says a lot about your mood, your personality. So the other reason why we make successful jingles is because they're catchy, because they're different, but also because they say something to us that is interesting, and finally keeping this link between the brand and the customers.
Michael, tell us about your involvement in the new Maybelline jingle. This makes me, I mean, I haven't heard it, but it makes me a little bit sad because I was an avid Maybelline concealer user for many years. Other brands are available, but the jingle was the main reason why I got bought into it.
You don't have to be sad, because we kept most of the legacy.
GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
It's 6:43. Let's have a look at some of the newspapers for you this morning. And The Sun leads on the death of the former One Direction star Liam Payne.
The Times says that the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, will use the budget to increase capital gains tax on the sale of shares, but not on the sale of second homes.
The Telegraph also leads on the budget, calling it the biggest tax raiser in history.
The Daily Mail says Rachel Reeves has been warned that hiking national insurance could become Labour's equivalent of the poll tax.
And the Eye says the Chancellor is facing more budget pressures to overhaul the system for calculating benefits.
OK, well, joining us now to go through the papers this morning is political commentator Andy Williams and the journalist and writer Emma Wolfe. Good to see you both this morning.
Morning.
And Emma, let's start with this tragic news, shall we? Liam Payne has died, aged 31.
I think a lot of people will be very shocked waking up this morning if they didn't hear the news last night. Terribly sad. He was out in Argentina, seems to have fallen or had some kind of accident at this hotel room. Only 31. Everybody remembers him from, you know, from his singing days. And I think it just goes to show how difficult it is after you've been, you know, absolutely kind of megastar, sort of finding a place in the world and finding your sense of kind of meaning and what you do next with a lot of money and a lot of fame and all of that. So really, really sad news, and terribly sad for his family, for his young child, who I think is 7, that he had with Cheryl Cole. Cheryl Vicini, what are we calling Cheryl now?
Just Cheryl now.
Just Cheryl.
No,
they have a 7-year-old son, and I just, you know, I think every parent will be imagining how you tell your child about that as well. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's horrific, Andy, isn't it? But it's also, of course, there are questions. Of course, people are going to want to know how this has happened.
Yeah, and there are reports about what the causes might have been. I think it's just...
You just don't know at this stage.
Don't know at this stage. I suppose what I'd say is it's hard to overstate what a phenomenon One Direction were and still are for so many people. I mean, for that demographic, particularly of kind of girls of a particular age, they were absolutely huge. And you can talk about the number of records bands sells, the number of number ones they have, but the absolute fanatical kind of fandom that they inspired was like no other band probably in my lifetime, I don't think.
Yeah, it's very much like the Beatles.
Yeah.
Yeah, very much. And you can see fans coming from all across Argentina. Look, you can see these pictures now, gathering outside the hotel. And this morning we've seen live pictures of them lighting candles. They've got photos of him that they're putting outside. I mean, essentially a shrine is being constructed outside of this hotel, which just goes to demonstrate, doesn't it, the stardom of Liam Payne.
Yeah, I mean, a real outpouring of grief. And I mean, as Emma said, it's just so... When someone that young dies in such tragic circumstances, it's just absolutely awful.
Emma, can we have a look at the Express, where the Chancellor is accused of using a bogus £40 billion black hole to justify upping taxes?
Yeah, well, we're all braced, aren't we, for this budget at the end of October, this budget of doom, budget of gloom, Halloween budget. And do you remember originally it was this mystical £22 billion black hole, which she announced a few weeks after the election. She'd found this massive black hole. It's now risen to 40 billion. Whether it's a mystical hole or a mythical hole, we don't know, because we're not actually being given that much information. We are, they won't release details of what exactly this black hole consists of. So now senior Tories in the Express have been accusing her of basically inventing this huge shortfall in order to justify this very, very brutal first budget that we are braced for, as I say, at the end of October. In fact, the Tories are saying, you remember that we predicted that £2,000 tax bombshell for everybody.
They said £4,000, and I don't think that had any grounding in reality. But I don't really understand why. What would the incentive be for Rachel Reeves to invent this number? I mean, I don't think she came into government to put everyone's taxes up and massively, cut spending. I don't think that's what she wants to do.
No,
but what I do think is a problem is that, part of this black hole, whatever the number is, part of it is genuinely a legacy of the previous government not running the finances properly, but part of it is about Labour's choices that they've made since they came into government. And so it's really difficult to disentangle what actually is a shortfall and what isn't.
Exactly, and the generosity towards certain sectors, i.e. public sector, and then cutting exactly, almost half, and then cutting the pensioners' winter fuel within 3 weeks of the election. It's not so much that she's invented it, it's the sort of people are calling out the cynicism of their election campaign, the lack of honesty, the lack of transparency. Paul Johnson at the IFS says 40 billion would be unparalleled, and that would need, eventually, if they're going to fill that, they will need to target income tax, which has got everybody, really worried. And Paul Johnson isn't just saying that; he's not exactly a kind of...
No, I agree. And actually, he was also saying during the election campaign that there was a conspiracy of silence between the Tories and Labour about the fact that actually they were both saying, "Oh, we don't need to raise taxes." He was saying, "Yes, you do," and you're not being honest about it. And actually, as somebody who supported Labour at the election and voted Labour, I was saying during the campaign, because I think they would have won anyway, I wish they'd been completely honest and just said, we're going to raise X, Y, Z taxes. If you don't like it, don't vote for us.
Yeah, well, that would have been... I tell you what is interesting, though, is the inflation figures yesterday, 1.7% below target, in which you think, oh, great. Actually, it's not necessarily good news for the government. It could impact tax revenue, because fewer people will be crossing the thresholds.
Yeah, that's right. There's a reason why 2% is the target. You want inflation to be steadily, inflation to be around that level so that there's an increase year on year. I mean, people, I think, again, will look at it and think, well, why did Rishi Sunak call an election for the 4th of July? Yeah. He could have come out yesterday afternoon off the back of those numbers and said election in November, which I think at the time is what we were all expecting.
But also inflation is likely to rise again, and energy bills are going to spike by, 10%, more than 10%. So, I don't think we're out of the woods yet. It's not stable, and it depends on what the Bank of England do as well.
Andy, let's look at something different, shall we, in the Daily Mirror today. This is Grace O'Malley Kumar's what would have been her 21st birthday.
Yeah, her parents have given this interview to really sad interview to the Mirror, where they've been talking about their kind of heartache at the fact that she won't be able to celebrate her 21st birthday, live her life, go on into adulthood. And, you know, by all accounts, she was a really smart, you know, ambitious woman with the world ahead of her. And it's just very, very sad. Obviously, still questions about the man who did this, Valdo Calacane, and whether there were failings, whether it was in the NHS or elsewhere, in terms of spotting that he might have done something as horrific as murder. Was it three people?
Yeah, three people.
Yeah.
2 young people and the caretaker. I think there were failings across the system. I mean, in terms of the police, in terms of the sort of, you know, custody, prison service, the NHS. He was known to be a violent, paranoid schizophrenic, and there were multiple opportunities to have him in care or looked after. So I think the family are very angry. And the 21st birthday is such a moment, isn't it? It's such a moment on the threshold of adulthood. And obviously they were at university and everything, but it's only been, what, just over a year?
Yeah, so she's 19.
Terribly painful for the family.
Just dreadful, isn't it?
They have said as well that they're incredibly proud of her because she was so brave, wasn't she, in trying to protect her friend. That's what happened that night, to try and protect Barnaby Webber. She stepped in. She could have run away, but she decided to stay and try and fight off the attacker. And they both died. But the family said they're very, very proud of her on her 21st birthday.
Emma, can we have a look at the eye? Whereas small boat crossings, action is taking effect.
Well, it's having an effect on the sort of proportion of people who cross over on small boats. Yesterday, we had the figures showing that in terms of small boat crossings, there were more in the 3 months since Labour came to power, July to now, than there were in the 6 months previously, January to July. So it's not as though Labour have got control of the small boats. They haven't smashed the criminal gangs as they promised to. I think we're nearly up to 14,000 since they came in July, on July the 5th. But this report from the Refugee Council is showing that small boats crossing are a smaller proportion. So only 3 in 10 of asylum claims are actually represented by small boats. It's a kind of displacement thing. People are realising that small boats are being cracked down on. Enforcement activity, some, is having an impact. People are crossing in other ways now. They're using alternative routes. They're using different modes of transport. They're using ferries, clandestine ferries. They're coming over on lorry drops.
Oh, so we're not talking about asylum seekers coming through legitimate routes?
No, they are using alternative clandestine routes to get here. And, you know, the reports have also the report also shows that small boat crossings themselves have become more deadly and the boats are more loaded. So the average boat now has 56 people on. So it's certainly not a safer route. It's not good news in any way, but it is, you know... I mean, look, in October, we had, I think it was October the 2nd or October the 4th, it was the highest crossings ever. It was over 500 people crossing over.
Yeah, and we have...
So, you know, there's still a major, major issue here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the UN have said that 2024 is the deadliest year so far in terms of Channel migrants.
In terms of deaths in the Channel.
The reality is that this situation hasn't improved for quite a number of years now. I think in terms of the administrative aspect, when people arrive in the UK, it looks like some of the action that Rishi Sunak's government was taking is paying off. Lots of that kind of mundane bureaucratic work to process people and clear that backlog. I think there was some progress made there. But as Em says, the reality is lots of people still crossing day in, day out. I don't think, as some people claim, that you know, people were waiting on the other side of the Channel for Labour to be elected and then they're all going to come over in their droves. Actually, the numbers are lower than they were in 2022. I just don't think anything's changed.
No, the problem is Labour's plan with all of this was not the type of plan to have an immediate impact.
No. Exactly.
But in a way, that's not good enough, is it?
No, and I think their plan, which is the sort of smash the gangs, you know, deal with the problem at source, I think that's one really important and necessary component, but it is more complicated than that.
All right. You two, we've got to leave it there. Emma, Andy, thank you both very much. We'll see you later on.
Let's have a look at the weather.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there, and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. A much brighter day today for most of us. Sunny spells far and wide, still some showers around, particularly across some western parts. But actually, for many, it's a dry start to the day. We've got the last of Wednesday's rain clearing from the Northern Isles, and just some showers following in for Northern Ireland, parts of southern and western Scotland, Wales and the southwest. These showers will be hit and miss. In between, there'll be some sunshine. The best of the sunshine across the Midlands, eastern and southeastern England, and it will feel mild once again, but not quite as mild as Wednesday, so highs of 16 to 19 Celsius. There is the chance of some thicker cloud and some outbreaks of rain moving into the far southeast by the end of the day, and we'll still have those showers affecting parts of central and western Scotland as well. But as you can see, plenty of clear spells as we go into the evening. Northern Ireland, mixture of clear spells and showers. 1 or 2 showers for Cumbria, parts of Wales and the southwest, but plenty of fine weather through central and eastern parts of the UK. Now, with clear skies widely overnight, it's going to be a cooler night compared with recent nights. A few mist and fog patches are possible, and some patchy cloud, particularly across western parts, especially of the hills. Otherwise, for many, it's a fine start to Friday. Temperatures of 8 to 12 Celsius typically first thing, and feeling pleasant enough in any early sunshine. But things are going to turn more unsettled. Initially for Northern Ireland and western Scotland, we'll see rain and wind arrive through the morning. The rain moves into Wales and the southwest, the rest of Scotland and eventually northern England, whilst the winds strengthen across many western and northwestern parts. 60-mile-an-hour wind gusts for northwest Scotland, but it stays sunny with lighter winds in the southeast.
A chilly start will give way to a lovely, warm afternoon. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In South Yorkshire, the A635 is closed between Hickleton and Marr after an accident yesterday evening. There are a number of road closures across parts of the northwest of England and parts of North Wales because of flooding. On Merseyside, the A506 is closed eastbound towards junction 6 of the M57 at Kirby because of flooding. In Wrexham, the A539 is closed along Llangollen Road at Rhuaben, and in Shropshire, the A49 is closed each way between Marshbrook and Craven Arms. Train services aren't running between Crewe and Chester. Buses replace trains between Rock Ferry and both Chester and Ellesmere Port, and there are delays of up to an hour with some cancelled trains between Shrewsbury and both Crewe and Wrexham General, and between Wrexham General and Bidston. And in Bedfordshire, the A421 is closed eastbound off the A6 south of Bedford after an accident.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
Good luck.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home?
Talking about?
Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy.
Man of the people.
It's all vibe.
Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQs live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQs live here on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Good morning. Pop sensation Liam Payne has died at the age of 31.
Well, the former One Direction member is reported to have fallen from a hotel balcony in Argentina on Wednesday afternoon.
Well, tributes to flooding in for the hitmaker who played a pivotal role in Britain's biggest boy band.
Tonight, Conservative leadership hopefuls Robert Jenrick and Kemi Badenoch go head-to-head in a GB News special, but to either have what it takes to lead the embattled Tories.
Scottish business leaders issue a new plea to Labour not to increase alcohol duty for fears of crippling the industry.
Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson joins us this morning as she launches a new funding programme as part of ambitious plans to open 3,000 new nurseries.
The King and Queen head down under in their most significant overseas tour since his cancer diagnosis.
Nearly 1 million Brits living with dementia could soon be aided by an AI robot specialising in Alzheimer's care.
New government plans are going to offer unemployed Brits discounted driving lessons. So we're debating this morning whether the jobless should get freebies.
Later this morning, Britain's most decorated Paralympian dame, Sarah Storey, divulges the secrets of her success. And also in sport, the country's coming to terms with a German becoming the England manager. So Ben Ainsley's Britannia is on New Zealand's tail, or is it stern? Or is it stern? Is it stern?
Stern.
It's on the stern. And pickle, paddle or tennis, which racket sport is which and why? We'll discuss.
Following a gloomy Wednesday with outbreaks of rain for many of us, Thursday's looking much brighter. I'll have the full forecast coming up very soon.
It's just gone 7 o'clock. I'm Stephen Dixon.
I'm Ellie Costello and this is GB News Breakfast.
Well, the news you're probably waking up to this morning is that One Direction star Liam Payne has died at the age of just 31, apparently falling from the 3rd floor of a hotel in Buenos Aires.
Well, fans across the world have come together to pay tribute to the star who helped define a generation of pop music.
Well, he'd been in Argentina supporting former bandmate Niall Horan, who was on tour there, and he had been posting on social media right before the shocking incident.
Well, joining us now is showbiz reporter Stephanie Tetchy. Good to see you this morning,
Good
Stephanie.
morning.
And it is just such shocking and tragic news, isn't it?
It's devastating news, Ellie. 31 is no age to go, but I think the circumstances which we're hearing about how Liam died is just dreadful. And I think, you know, millions of fans across the globe, One Direction fans, are waking up to this news and trying to comprehend what's happened here. You know, he was a pop icon. You can imagine at the age of 16 finding fame at the way he did with the rest of the boys. They instantly rose to fame and they became these pop sensations. It had been the death of the boy band before they came back, and over the past few years, he's been on a solo journey, you know, trying to find himself, trying to establish himself as a solo artist. He had moments where he was there and he was at the top of the game, maybe not like Harry Styles, but his career was always plagued with addiction, stints in rehab, which he was quite open about. I've interviewed Liam several times over the years, and he's always struck me as a very kind and honest character. You know, he's almost like a journalist dream in the sense where there was nothing to hide about the problems he was going through. And it was one of those things where I think what's happened is, like, to find that fame at 16 and then to be out of the boy band by 21, it's like, how do you move on from that?
I mean, this is the thing a lot of people have said, as you did, that you know, he was actually a nice person.
Lovely person. I just think, you know, when you get fame that young, as I've seen with most of these pop stars, sometimes they become a bit egotistical and they lose their way, but that wasn't the case with Liam. He was very warm-hearted. I interviewed him just after he became a father and welcomed his son Bear with Cheryl Cole, and I could see it literally brought light into his life becoming a father. So I'm definitely thinking of Cheryl and Bear, who's just 7 years old. So for them to come to terms with this is just going to be a hard road ahead for them.
And we haven't heard from Cheryl yet. I mean, you can only imagine the shock that she's going through. She's probably going to have to wake up this morning and tell her young son. She'll be working out how to do that. And we haven't heard from the bandmates yet, have we? Because you can only imagine how they're feeling, especially Niall, who was with just 2 weeks ago.
And I think what's so haunting about this, like, he was literally on social media just hours before his death, even an hour before his death, just posting up. Life was just as normal. He was there in Argentina supporting Niall. But the thing is, you know, a lot of of what people say online now is be kind, because over the past few weeks he has been ridiculed online for some of his recent appearances, including one at Niall's concert where people were making fun of him, saying he was acting a bit strange. He was also facing a potential legal case with one of his former lovers. So there was a lot of pressure on Liam before his death, including he was working on a second album which had to be rewritten. So there was a lot going on, a lot of struggles with him, and I think as the days go by and the weeks go on, we will have more information on what's happened here.
We don't know, and we can't speculate as exactly what has gone on. We do know that he's fallen off this balcony, which... this is what I don't understand. It's very difficult to understand how this happens, and this is not an uncommon thing. I mean, we had a case not that many days ago.
It's horrific, Stephen. Like, this week in showbiz, we've had another death of a DJ in Ibiza who apparently fell from a balcony as well. And I just think when you hear these showbiz deaths, they're not, like, natural in the sense where they're very, like, freak accidents. And trying to get your head around it is just a bit too shocking, especially for Liam Payne. I just think he was just such a lovable character, and you really think he was battling through those demons, and you was just hoping that he was going to get on the other side, and there was plans for him to go on tour, and it just seems like everything has just been brought to a very sad halt.
I've just seen Harry Styles' mother post a picture saying just a boy, obviously referencing the fact that he was so young, just 31.
Well, that's it. If you're seeing at the moment, if you see his first audition on X Factor in 2008, he was just 14 years old, and he had this incredible voice, and he got rejected, but Simon Cowell said, come back in 2 years, and he did come back in 2 years. And Liam was quite open when he said, you know, when he got rejected from X Factor, he felt like it was the end of the world. So for him to come back shows the determination he's had. But he's also been quite open in interviews where he says that aftercare duty must be provided for young artists who go on such reality shows. Because can you imagine your big, successful career almost drawing to an end at the age of 21? Like, where do you go there? You've got all this money.
I do sort of wonder if showbiz like that, this huge success is more of a curse than anything else.
Stephen, I often think that, and I just think there is that price of fame because you can get the money, and I think he loved his fans. I don't think it's about the fans that are the problem here, but it's the other side of you've got this voice and you're no longer a part of the boy band that made you a success. What do you do next? He hasn't enjoyed the same success as Harry Styles has. He was like the breakout star. So you're kind of left to your own devices, and you're surrounded by lots of yes people. So to break through that, you need an aftercare system, and I'm sure his family have always been there for him, but you know, he was old enough to kind of make his own decisions, unfortunately.
And there'll be fans all over the world this morning who'll be so devastated. I mean, we've been seeing live pictures all morning outside the hotel.
Yeah.
I mean, a vigil being held by fans there.
Well, One Directioners are not like other fans. You know, we hear about the Swifties, but One Direction does, even since the band have been split, they still love One Direction. They've been following all of them individually. So for them, it's almost like a cult for them, how much they love those stars. And I think, you know, in the industry and with fans, there was always this hope that One Direction was going to get back together. I think people were just waiting for the right time for that. And now, even if they do, unfortunately, there's going to be one member missing.
OK. Steph, for now, thanks very much indeed. It's 9 minutes past 7. Now, today is the day Robert Jenrick and Kemi Badenoch will face off in the first televised Tory leadership event.
Yes, Christopher Hope is presiding over the event as both politicians vie to prove themselves.
Well, let's get up to date with all the details you need to know with our reporter, Adam Cherry. Morning to you, Adam. I mean, it is going to be fascinating that they are facing off here. They're going to have to prove who's got the mettle.
Yeah, that's right. So I'll just take you through how this will work. So they'll both have 5 minutes to make their opening pitches. Then they will individually take 40 minutes worth of questions from our political editor, Christopher Hope, and members of the live audience. Now, they're not facing each other directly. There's not a head-to-head in that sense. They will instead just take those questions throughout the show from the audience instead. What will be interesting to watch out for is, even though they're not on the stage together attacking each other, do they now there's only two left, start to draw more direct comparisons with themselves against their opponent? Do they get those little jabs in that we haven't seen so far? It's all been very cordial and very friendly, partially because the party has imposed this yellow card system, which means these blue-on-blue attacks are discouraged, because in 2022 that all got a little bit grisly and undermined party unity. Nonetheless, we are seeing a little bit of that creep back in already. We saw Kemi Badenoch at a grassroots virtual event with party members saying she's running a grassroots campaign. She's not running a campaign for the media and for the TV screens, which for those who have been following this closely might see that as a little bit of a jab at Robert Jenrick, at her opponent, who is very keen to get in front of the camera, arguably a little bit more than she has been more recently. So watch out for that. But it'll be certainly an interesting a box office moment for the party membership, for the country, and of course for GB News.
I mean, it's a moment in time as well for the Tory party. The biggest question is, who is the Tory party? What is the Tory party now? I mean, only 121 MPs left. What's it even stand for anymore? And I guess tonight people will be watching thinking, who out of the two of you is going to unite this embattled party?
Absolutely, and unity is crucial. I think they're both buoyed by the fact that the mistakes of this Labour government in the first 100 days gives them a sense of hope in the future that perhaps if they turn things around, they might be back in government in 5 years. At least that's what they're saying publicly. On that unity point, however, Robert Jenrick is saying that if he wins, he will impose the policy position on all MPs, all 121 of them, then they must commit to leaving the European Court of Human Rights, the ECHR. Now, that's interesting because that's not a universal position within the party. There are plenty, although there's only 121 of them, but there are nonetheless still plenty who would oppose doing that. So that might create some tension further down the line if he were to win. Not only because, let's not forget, neither of these candidates received an overwhelming majority in the MPs round. They both, at one stage or another, came first, but most MPs will have voted for someone else at some point.
Cherry there for us in Westminster.
12 minutes past 7. Let's have a look at some of the other stories heading into the newsroom today.
And UN peacekeepers say an Israeli tank has fired at one of its watchtowers in southern Lebanon. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has held an emergency meeting on increasing support for Gaza after the US threatened to take away some military support unless Israel boosted aid within 30 days.
Relatives of the Menendez brothers, Lyle and Eric, have gathered in Los Angeles calling for their release. They're currently serving life sentences for killing their parents back in 1989, but there has been a renewed interest in their case because of a Netflix series. Prosecutors have announced they are reviewing new evidence.
Bison cattle introduced into Blean Woods in Kent to help tackle the climate crisis have welcomed 2 new calves, bringing the herd to 8. The project, run by Kent Wildlife Trust and Wildwood Trust, aims to naturally manage the woodland, restore the ecosystem and support biodiversity.
And that's lovely. I really like that. It's just, it's the tackled the climate crisis thing I just have a real problem with.
Yeah.
8 cows, basically, which is effectively what they are. 8 is going to tackle the climate emergency. No, it isn't.
Yeah, but then we're also told that cattle and the methane they produce
it's a big
bad
problem.
idea and a big problem.
So you just can't make it up, can you? I think it's lovely to have them there.
I'll tell you something though, they're very cute.
Very cute, and it's, you know, it's lovely. It's just the fact that of how it's pitched, which just drives me slightly crackers. Yeah. Anyway, let's see what the weather's going to do for you today. Here's Aidan.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there, welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. A much brighter day today for most of us. Sunny spells far and wide, still some showers around, particularly across some western parts. But actually for many it's a dry start to the day. We've got the last of Wednesday's rain clearing from the Northern Isles and just some showers following in for Northern Ireland, parts of southern and western Scotland, Wales and the southwest. These showers will be hit and miss. In between, there'll be some sunshine. The best of the sunshine across the Midlands, eastern and southeastern England, and it will feel mild once again, but not quite as mild as Wednesday, so highs of 16 to 19 Celsius. there is the chance of some thicker cloud and some outbreaks of rain moving into the far southeast by the end of the day, and we'll still have those showers affecting parts of central and western Scotland as well. But as you can see, plenty of clear spells as we go into the evening. Northern Ireland, mixture of clear spells and showers. 1 or 2 showers for Cumbria, parts of Wales and the southwest, but plenty of fine weather through central and eastern parts of the UK. Now, with clear skies widely overnight, it's going to be a cooler night compared with recent nights. A few mist and fog patches are possible, and some patchy cloud, particularly across western parts, especially over the hills. Otherwise, for many, it's a fine start to Friday. Temperatures of 8 to 12 Celsius typically first thing, and feeling pleasant enough in any early sunshine. But things are going to turn more unsettled. Initially for Northern Ireland and Western Scotland, we'll see rain and wind arrive through the morning. The rain moves into Wales and the southwest, the rest of Scotland and eventually northern England, whilst the winds strengthen across many western and northwestern parts. 60-mile-an-hour wind gusts for northwest Scotland, but it stays sunny with lighter winds in the southeast.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Now, time is ticking on for your chance to win £36,000 worth in cash. In fact, you've got it marked in your diary. How long have they got?
It's 1 week tomorrow.
There you go. So you need to get a wiggle on. Make sure you don't miss out. Here are all the details that you need.
We love making our audience big cash winners, and you really could be next with £36,000 tax-free cash in your bank.
Now, still to come, we're going to be talking to the director of the world's first Alzheimer's AI robot. What's next?
I'm Arlene Foster on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Conservative MPs have finally chosen their top 2 for the leadership. And now, it's over to the members. Join me, Christopher Hope, tonight as Kevin Badenoch and Robert Jenrick are quizzed by Conservative Party members and myself at our GB News leadership event.
And afterwards, join me, Patrick Christys, with a live studio audience and a star panel as we discuss what it means for the Conservative Party and what it means for you. Decision time, the race to lead, from 7 p.m. tonight. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+ and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christys tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christys tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date. Or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Conservative MPs have finally chosen their top 2 for the leadership. And now, it's over to the members. Join me, Christopher Hope, tonight as Kevin Badenoch and Robert Jenrick are quizzed by Conservative Party members and myself at our GB News leadership event.
And afterwards, join me, Patrick Christys, with a live studio audience and a star panel as we discuss what it means for the Conservative Party and what it means for you. Decision Time, the race to lead, from 7 p.m. tonight. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
21 minutes past 7 now. This is a cracker. It's the first of its kind, an AI avatar which has been released to support people living with dementia and Alzheimer's.
Yes, the machine is called Live and will use real-life experiences to communicate with patients.
Well, the goal is to increase the brain's ability to cope with a disease, slow down the progression of the symptoms.
Well, we're joined now by the Director at Innovations in Dementia, Steve Milton. Good to see you this morning, Steve. And tell us about Live.
Hi, good morning. Well, Live has been built from a project of ours called Dementia Diaries, and for 8 years we've been collecting audio and video diaries of people with dementia, talking not just about dementia but about holidays, politics, cooking, and just generally living their lives. Then Lenovo came to us and said, how would you like us to turn all of this experience, all of this wisdom, all of this compassion into a virtual avatar which can be there to support people with dementia who might just have come home from their diagnosis and be sitting there wondering what to do? Because we know from people with dementia that when they get their diagnosis, they often have a sense that their life is over. And what we hope Live will be able to do is to give them a sense that it is possible to live a good life, even with dementia.
So, Steve, in what sense? I mean, that all sounds like a very sort of positive messaging, if you like. But what advantage is there to having all this stuff programmed into an avatar? How do you interact with it?
Well, Live is a talking avatar. So you don't type in like with ChatGPT. You just ask it a question, and it responds straight back to you. Now, one of the things which is often missing from the information and the support that people with dementia get at the point of diagnosis is the perspective of real people living with dementia. And unlike ChatGPT and other forms of AI, which draw from the entire internet, good and bad, Live has been trained specifically through the use of dementia diaries, through many focus groups that we've held with people with dementia. So if you like, it's a direct connection between people who've been living often for many years with dementia and someone starting at the beginning of that journey. And we think that's a really positive step forward and a really positive way to support people who are wondering what to do with their lives at this point.
But Steve, there'll be people watching and listening today thinking, surely nothing beats human connection, face-to-face connection.
Sure.
And the social interaction is key, isn't it, to the well-being of people with dementia?
Absolutely, Ellie. And one of the things that we hear all the time from the people that we work with is that one of the key moments for them was when they started to meet up with other people living with dementia. And that happened an awful lot during COVID, and obviously a lot of that was virtual groups online. And one of our projects is running a network of these national groups called Deep, where people come together. Now, Live can't replace that, but what Live is doing is drawing on all of that wisdom and all of that experience. But again, it's not meant to be. It's certainly not a replacement for medical advice, that's for sure. It's not a replacement for human contact, but it is what we hope ultimately will be available 24-hour-a-day source of advice and compassionate support, drawing on the real experience of people who've actually been there.
Yeah, trying to get my head around it. So in a sense, what you're saying is for those people who are newly diagnosed, they could have immediately someone, in effect, someone who has been there, been through it, who can offer advice from day one.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Now, at the moment, if you've just, again, people with dementia tell us that when they get their diagnosis, they often go home and they feel completely lost. They feel completely bereft and often come away with the sense, as I said, that their life is over. Now, that might come from the way that the diagnosis has been communicated, but it also comes from our kind of cultural and media stereotypes of people with dementia, often as very elderly, often with very advanced dementia. But many, many, many people are getting their diagnosis at a point when they've got years and years, and in some cases, decades of life ahead of them. And what we hope Live can do is to provide that slightly different perspective where people can get the idea that it is possible to live with hope, to live with a sense of agency, and crucially, retain your place at the human table.
Yeah, it's a really important message. Steve Milton, good to see you this morning. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
I think stuff like that is fascinating and amazing because, as you say, it's just providing that. It's like a friend, isn't it, who understands what you're going through and who you can, those questions that are going to pop up, and you can get proper, decent, well-rehearsed, well-researched answers, and rehearsed as well. Yeah. So that could be really useful. It's just fascinating, isn't it, stuff like that? It'd be interesting to see what impact it does have.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a cruel disease as well, so there's some positive news for once. Right, should we have a look at the weather?
No, we'll tell you what we're going to do, though, is we're going to tell you they've got all the sport heading your way in just a moment.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In South Yorkshire, the A635 is closed in both directions between the Hickleton Crossroads and Mar after an accident. The M602 in Greater Manchester is partly blocked eastbound between junctions 2 and 3 from Eccles to the Regent Road roundabout, causing queues. Train services aren't running between Crewe and Chester because of flooding, with buses replacing trains between Rock Ferry and both Chester and Ellesmere Port. In Bedfordshire, the A421 is closed eastbound off the A6 south of Bedford after an accident. On the M1 from Bedfordshire into Hertfordshire, the inside lanes closed southbound after an accident between junctions 10 and 9 from Luton Airport to Redbourne, causing queues. And on the M2 in Kent, there are 2 lanes closed westbound where a vehicle caught fire between junctions 4 and 3 from Gillingham to the Chatham and Rochester turn, causing delays.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home? Talking about. Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy. Man of the people.
It's all vibe.
Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQs live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQs live here on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Pearce. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 7:30. It's sports time now, and Paul Coit is here with us. Morning.
Good morning.
Thomas Tuchel.
10 different people, apparently, were in the running for the England job.
Really?
So there was you, there was me. Were you?
Oh, yeah. I was
were?
favourite at one point, actually.
So that's 7 left. I don't know who else there was. Apparently they spoke to lots of different people. Thomas Tuchel, though, is the one that's got the job. You're OK with him being German, no?
Yeah, I think so. I think as long as he wins.
Well, he gets the job done, that's all that matters.
I mean, in an ideal world, it would be great to have an English manager be the manager of England, but, you know, it's not like it's never happened before. We've tried it twice before.
But it hasn't worked before, has it? So could it be different this time?
Is it going to work this time? And
well,
also,
he's very talented, isn't he?
He is very talented, and he's a real tactician. I think it's going to be different as it was from Gareth Southgate, whereas Gareth Southgate was a little bit too careful, and they're talking, you know, there's all that talk about the handbrake coming off, maybe a bit more, but he's a very good tactician. So anyway, he spoke to the press yesterday about various things, being a German and how he will feel about everybody not being happy about that, and also singing the national anthem as well. This is Thomas Tuchel yesterday. That position.
I'm sorry, I just have a German passport, but I can just tell them, and maybe all of these supporters also felt my passion for the English Premier League, my passion for the country. We are focused on the qualification and on the World Cup.
So will you sing the national anthem? Does an England manager need to?
I have not made my decision yet. I want to be very honest with you. No matter what decision I will take, we have a bit time until March. I will always show my respect to my new role.
Of course. See, I've got hope. I've got hope because they threw some really, actually, unnecessary questions at him.
I agree.
But he handled it very well.
Yeah, you know what things are like these days. Everything was very carefully prepared. It's like, you're going to get asked this, Thomas, and you're going to get asked this. But he did handle it very well, handled it with humour, came over very nice. Yeah. He has had a lot of arguments with players in the past, doesn't? You know, he's no wallflower, so he does stand up and sometimes gets into a bit of argy-bargy. But I like the way things are going and hopefully we'll be OK.
Little silverware.
Should I mention the cycling?
Oh, yes.
Like
a bit of cycling.
The World Track Cycling Championships. Not something that we'd normally mention, but we haven't won a gold medal in that since 2008, and it was Emma Finucane and Sophie Capewell and Katie Marchant won the team sprint. There they are yesterday.
Good on them.
Look at them. They won the gold medal as well in the Olympics. You know what the shirt's all about? You familiar with that shirt? The rainbow thing there?
It's very retro.
Well, that's a world champion shirt, and there are rules around that. So if they ever race in a competition in the team sprint, no matter where they are...
They can wear that shirt.
It's not they can, they have to wear that shirt. That's the law. So it's not that they can wear it, they have to wear it. And if they actually are seen in a competition... So, for example, if you just had one lap of the track and you won that competition, you were the world champion. If you ever raced anywhere in that competition or doing one lap, you'd have to wear that or else you'll be fined because you have to show I'm the world champion. So that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, good. Well, I don't think they'll have any issues wearing it. Good on them.
I don't think so either.
No,
but they get a certain amount that they can wear. It's just but anyway, Dame Sarah Storey, who's going to be with us in an hour, she'll know all about that.
Yeah. She will.
She will know all about that.
She will. In the cricket, have we had a strong start?
Yeah, so they've lost our wicket, so they were 291 all out.
It literally says here,
291
England make a strong start.
But OK, Pakistan 366 all out, England 291 all out, Pakistan are batting, so it's early days. Right. So, but you know what?
You're getting ahead of yourself,
It was fairly
Stephen.
strong. It was fairly strong in the way that it was weak. It was fairly strong.
I hate you, Paul Cook.
I know.
He set you up for that one.
I try to help. Do you want to talk about
we talk about pickleball.
What on earth is pickleball?
Pickleball and paddleball.
Paddle.
Oh, yeah.
Someone actually said that to you, didn't they?
Someone has set me up, I think. No, it's paddle.
It's paddle because you use a paddle.
Because you use a paddle, yeah.
Not
and
a padel.
pickleball. But I do actually like the name pickleball,
I'd love to play a little paddle.
Who fancies paddle?
Yeah.
A game of
Pickley or paddle.
So what is pickleball?
Right. You got tennis.
Yes.
And this is look, there we are. That is paddleball. And I'll tell you how I know that's paddleball, not pickleball. It's because the racket has got holes in it. And the tennis ball they use at paddleball, so it's a paddleball ball, is a less pressurised tennis ball, whereas pickleball is actually a wiffle ball.
What?
Which is a
Wiffle ball?
ball with, you know, those little, you know, they get the little golf balls with lots of holes in, so they don't fly over. They've got a tennis ball, but there's got lots of holes.
The plastic ones?
Yeah, one of those plastic ones. So that's what they use.
That's what you play on the beach, then?
Yeah, but it's paddle.
Well, that's an official sport, isn't it?
It is. Well, pickle is big in America. Paddle seems to be taking over here.
It's very big here. You
It's
can't,
really
you can't
big.
get a court.
You can't get a paddle ball caught for love nor money. And Peter Piper picked a pickle ball and paddle ball.
Are you serious?
I'm not in the market for a court, but I've heard that it's impossible to get a booking at a paddle court in the UK.
Where is there a paddle court?
They're everywhere.
They're everywhere.
You just got to have a look.
And you can't get a booking.
There's a paddle pickle power... God, I can't even
It's a
do
struggle,
this. Paddle
struggle.
pickle power struggle. The LTA want to own pickleball. They own paddleball because they're saying that it's ruining tennis. But apparently 10% of all courts are now being used for paddle, not pickle.
Paddle.
You're all mad. You're all absolutely mad. And anyone who tries to pick a...
Pick a what? Pick a paddle ball?
No, book a paddle court.
Book a paddle court.
You want to go and get a proper life.
It's good exercise. You should be encouraging the exercise.
Go to the pub or something.
Are you pickling my pepper, Mr. Pubman?
I just think it's ridiculous.
It's a very good game. It's just difficult to
Have you played it?
No, I haven't.
Oh.
No. You know why? It's because I can't get a paddleball court.
You can't get a court, yeah.
I get a pickleball court, but I don't want to play pickleball. I want to play paddleball.
I've lost the will to live, but thank you both very much indeed.
You don't have to thank me.
Oh,
I
don't need to thank
apologise.
you. You're still here.
You can thank me.
Right, we got the papers. Show you in a minute.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Conservative MPs have finally chosen their top two for the leadership. And now, it's over to the members. Join me, Christopher Hope, tonight as Kevin Badenoch and Robert Jenrick are quizzed by Conservative Party members and myself at our GB News leadership event.
And afterwards, join me, Patrick Christys, with a live studio audience and a star panel as we discuss what it means for the Conservative Party and what it means for you. Decision time, the race to lead, from 7 p.m. tonight. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
True crime is everywhere.
Yeah, next weekend, CrimeCon UK takes place in London. And joining us now to tell us more about that event and the true crime phenomena is former detective Stephen. How do you pronounce your surname? Keogh. Sorry, Stephen.
That's all right.
I should have checked you before.
No worries.
And Nancy, and again, Nancy, what's your surname?
Bourne.
Thank you. I'm showing my ignorance there, but thank you both for joining us. So, Stephen, you're a former top cop. Hope you don't mind me describing you as that. At CrimeCon and other events like that, do you get into sort of the semantics of the investigations and, you know, how... For example, how I was watching something the other night where somebody was unfortunately murdered, but you saw the crime scene investigators trying to work out from which side the person was attacked from. Did the knife come from the left-hand side or the right-hand side? Is it all that kind of stuff?
So for me, everything I've done since I've left the police is about sharing that knowledge of investigations, because if you watch TV, they get it wrong a lot. So what we try and do, I'm not the only police officer there, there's experts, so forensic scientists, psychologists, all from that investigative world, just trying to get across, well, actually, this is how it's really done. This is what we do, not what you're going to see on telly. And I think that's really important. So for me personally, coming along to CrimeCon, I just look at the list of people that are there, honestly, and I'm proud to be associated with them. There are some fascinating people there. People who've really fought for justice for their children. People who are campaigning for victims, for survivors. So it's an event that when you look at the name, you might think, oh, they're just going to sit there talking about serial killers and what they got up to. Couldn't be further from the truth. It's really about what goes on, how it impacts the victims, how the investigations are carried out. It's educational as much as anything.
GB News, The People's Channel.
I'm Emily Carver. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back.
7:40.
We're going through the papers now. Political commentator Andy Williams and journalist and writer Emma Wolfe. Very good morning to you both.
Morning.
And Andy, let's start with this really tragic news about Liam Payne. Former One Direction star has died at the age of 31.
Yeah.
People will be waking up to this news.
Yeah, very, very sad news. Someone so young and from such an iconic band of that era, in that, you know, you may not have known them well or particularly liked them necessarily, but among a particular demographic and among a particular cohort, sort of 10, 15 years ago, they were the biggest band in the world. They sold something like 70 million records, and they were famous in every single country. I mean, literally everywhere. And that's why in Buenos Aires this morning there are fans, Argentine fans, rocking up at the hotel and paying their respects and laying candles, and yeah, all just very, very sad. And obviously leaves behind a 7-year-old son, which is probably the most tragic thing of all, really.
Yeah, I mean, we have been talking about the fact, because obviously not everyone knows who he is, Emma, but we are talking about someone who at the age of 21, after 5 years of enormous fame, the sort of day job stopped.
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it?
And that's what causes so many problems for people.
So many problems. This huge global, as Andy says, global kind of superstardom, global fame, a lot of money. You know, they made a lot of money. They were absolute superstars, those boys. And you just wonder, what do you do with your life after that? I mean, it's not as though they're sort of classical musicians and can go on to careers in other ways. They were manufactured kind of pop groups. So I think it leaves you, especially as you get older, with a kind of void in terms of what you do with a career, what do you do next? And I suppose that is very, very hard to grapple with, finding a meaning, finding a path.
Well, I think it's even more stark for them because Harry Styles has gone on to become a megastar in his own right, both as a musician, but also as an actor. So he's sort of lifted himself out of One Direction and become this really, really iconic, successful and kind of critically acclaimed entertainer. But the others sort of...
And some people
really.
do. I mean, you know, Victoria Beckham is a fashion designer, whatever you may think of her clothes.
Well, Robbie Williams would take that.
The rest of the Spice Girls are kind of former Spice Girls. And it is... Exactly, Robbie Williams is another example. I mean, it's a whole era of those manufactured bands.
I mean, there's been talk about aftercare, and he did talk about the need for better aftercare. And I don't know if aftercare is the right word, but you do need some assistance with these people to say, actually, you've got more cash than you can spend.
Well, I think there's a...
You know, how do you actually get into like a real life?
Yeah.
You know, forget about success in that way. Just have a real, you know, have a lovely.
But aren't we really touching on the fact that work is what we all need something to do? It's not about the money.
No,
I mean, he doesn't want to go out and be a builder and earn £5 an hour, or £10 an hour. But it's not that. It's doing something, finding something to do. And I suppose that's what everybody needs guidance with after such stardom.
And what's so haunting about what we've seen happen overnight is he was posting on social media, on Snapchat. We were just looking
a few
at videos,
hours
weren't we?
before.
Just a few hours.
Yeah.
Saying it's a lovely day here in Argentina. We're having our breakfast. Look at the
With
view.
his girlfriend,
With his girlfriend.
Yeah.
I mean, all seemed to be going well yesterday morning. I mean, it's just so haunting. Isn't
I think there might... I wonder whether there's a reckoning coming for the X Factor, actually. And I know there's been some stories about this in the past, but to come back to that point about aftercare, or at least what support infrastructure is there in place for people who go from being normal kids to suddenly becoming incredibly famous and wealthy. And then, you know, the whole arc of his career was, what, 5 years?
Yeah.
From being a nobody to becoming as a teenager, global megastar, unbelievable wealth, and then done. And, OK, you've still got the money and you can go on and do whatever you like. But as we were saying, what do you do with your life? You know, you do need that support structure around you.
I suppose that's what family's for, though, isn't it? Sort of family you need to keep you know, there to keep your feet on the ground and...
It was very close to his family. He leaves behind 2 older sisters, his parents, obviously his young son, Bear. And you can only imagine, really, how that news is going to be broken to a 7-year-old probably this morning, Emma.
Absolutely heartbreaking. That was his son with Cheryl, the pop singer Cheryl And they had Bear 7 years ago, as you say, and someone will have to explain to that. And I think he was very close to his son, although their relationship ended. I think he was very close to Bear. So,
it's just heartbreaking that this is the sort of story we report on far too often in relation to celebs, showbiz people.
Yeah.
Where these tragedies happen, it's just awful.
And no age at all.
No. Right, Andy, let's have a look at the Sun, should we? Another showbiz star, actually. This time it's Taylor Swift. Keir Starmer, there's been calls for an investigation into...
People need to grow up. This is the most utter nonsense non-story in politics that I can remember. Man goes to Taylor Swift concert.
Twice.
Fine, that's OK. He goes to Taylor Swift concert twice. And, I mean, I think his only mistake here is paying back the money. I just don't understand why he did that, because he did nothing wrong. He said he did nothing wrong. Then he paid the money back. Don't understand. But now, for some reason, the press are trying to turn it into this big scandal. They're calling it Taylorgate. I mean, come on. You know, so as I understand it, and I'm really struggling to get my head around this because I genuinely can't understand what the problem is supposed to be. But I think it's that they gave Taylor Swift blue light sort of VIP security while she was in the UK, and he took tickets. But 3 weeks before she was in the UK, she had to abandon a load of gigs in Vienna because there was a credible terror threat against her. It seems to me probably she needed that security, and I don't mind if the taxpayer has to foot the bill. Look at how much money she's bringing into the UK economy every time she does a Wembley gig with 100,000 people. So I just don't get this at all.
Let me set it straight for you then, if you don't see what the big deal is.
Right.
There was political interference in the Met Police. The Met Police had made a decision that that the security threat was fine, that she didn't need VIP protection, the blue light escort to Wembley. That's the first thing. There was interference. About, I think, 3 or 4 cabinet members and the Prime Minister went to these gigs, got free tickets to these gigs.
Yep.
It's not so much going to the concert, although many people are wondering why a 62-year-old man goes twice to meet Taylor Swift and then goes and fangirls her afterwards when the country's falling apart. There are more serious things.
She's one of the most famous women in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. He went twice, and he went to shake hands with her afterwards, a little brush by with Taylor Swift. Secondly, why wasn't he transparent? He has repeatedly, his team have failed to answer questions again and again. Did he meet Taylor Swift? They wouldn't say. It's a lack of transparency, it's a lack of honesty. There's footage of him meeting a group of teenagers a few days later and saying, oh, it's a great concert. If you get a chance to go, well, most people don't get a £3,000 ticket gifted, £3,000 worth of hospitality gifted to them. Most teenagers couldn't get tickets and couldn't have gone. He didn't mention to them that he'd met Taylor Swift. It's the lack of transparency around all of this. It's not in isolation, Andy. It is Freebie-gate, it is Frock-gate, it is personal shoppers, free glasses, accommodation and expenses gate, on top of Taylorgate.
So trivial, and I think everyone
it is trivial. It is trivial at a time when he should be focusing on running the country and not taking £300 from pensioners.
I don't think it's a problem if the Prime Minister spends 3 hours one evening going to a Taylor Swift gig. What's the issue? Are we saying that senior politicians can't have a life? They have to be chained to their desk all the time. It's ridiculous.
Well, let us know what you think. gbnews.com/your say.
Emma, let's have a look at the Daily Mail, shall we? And Harry and Meghan have bought a home in Portugal.
Yeah, I mean, there's not enough detail in this. I want more detail. Apparently, it's just making me very envious. Apparently, Harry and Meghan, they no longer have a home in this country, obviously. No longer have a home on this side of the Atlantic. They live in California, in Montecito, and the King last year asked them to hand back Frogmore Cottage. Thank you very much. So apparently, according to the Daily Mail, it's understood that Prince Harry and Meghan have bought a home on the coast in Portugal.
How lovely.
Yeah, and that would give them the golden visa that they need, because Meghan was going to apply for British citizenship but didn't, because they left after a couple of years after the wedding. And it would give them the golden visa, so they would have visa-free access to the EU if they own a home in Portugal.
Right.
So, yeah, the Brooks...
Not that they'd have any trouble getting a visa.
I wouldn't have thought so. Eugenie, Princess Eugenie and Jack Brooksbank, her husband, have a place in Portugal, and they're really close to Harry and Meghan, who have stayed with them in California. But yeah, what a life. What lucky people.
Yeah, well, yeah. Yeah.
It's all the money from that Spotify deal for the 6 podcasts.
It's funny, isn't it? People saying they're on the rocks and this is going wrong and that's going wrong, but they're
just buying a second home.
Buying a second home.
Yeah. I've got to have a look at this. We've got loads of time. Starmer has been told to get up to speed on keeping the UK safe, says the Express. And this has come from Rishi Sunak, Andy.
Yeah, so this is from yesterday's PMQs, where Sunak was quizzing Keir Starmer on whether something called the Foreign Influence Registration Scheme was still being implemented. And basically, this is a scheme that that looks at clandestine political activity, i.e. spying. It's designed to force people to disclose relationships so that we can prevent lots of people spying in the UK, particularly from China and Russia. And Sunak is sort of saying, oh, Labour aren't really doing this properly and they need to get a grip. I think what they're trying to do is tie together a load of threads, one of which is around Mauritius and the Chagos Islands, one of which is around how much do we invest in our military and our defence capabilities, to try and paint a picture that Labour's not serious about our sort of place in the world.
Can we talk about PMQs yesterday? What's wrong with your leader that he doesn't understand that he's the Prime Minister?
Yeah, so this is that Starmer called Sunak Prime Minister again.
Repeatedly.
Yeah, I know. He does need somebody to sit him down and maybe give him hypnotherapy or something.
He's
just to
Prime Minister.
Yeah.
Does he know that? Because he has been Prime Minister, apparently, for 3 months.
Well, it's been over 100 days now,
It
hasn't
has
it?
indeed.
You think he'd be used to it.
Famously. No, old habits die hard. I mean, I
That's
do
what
think,
number 10
I do
said.
think at this stage, did they? I didn't...
Yeah,
I'm
they
not
did.
taking
That's
the
their
line of
actual...
number 10, did they?
No, but that's
Okay.
their actual... A spokesperson said, old habits die hard.
Well, there we go. I can understand why that sort of gets lodged into your brain, particularly in the very weird way you have to speak to people in Parliament, but nonetheless, it's a bit embarrassing.
I mean, look, you've got to get past it.
You've got to get past it.
You work for different companies, and you have to remember which company you work for. Everyone has to do.
He's been in a space where they keep saying X, Y, BBC or something, and then they have to say another one. Yeah, he really needs to sort that out.
It does. It looks a bit...
And didn't correct himself. Doesn't seem to sort of realise and then correct himself.
It's not a good look.
It doesn't look like a man in control.
Did see Angela Rayner picked up on it, though. I could see her on the front bench sort of going, oh, OK.
Oh, no. Yeah.
Do you fancy a Greggs, darling?
I always like a Greggs.
I knew you guys would like this one.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So Greggs are opening...
Actually, my two favourite things there, Emma.
I know, I was going to say, cheese and onion bake, sausage roll, and a coupe, a glass of champagne. So they're opening a pop-up champagne bar in Newcastle, where they're from, Newcastle upon Tyne, the Phoenix, the department store up there.
Phoenix.
Yeah, I knew you'd know the Phoenix in Newcastle, of all places. So they're going to do £75 glass of champagne.
What?
£75! You can get a glass of Prosecco for a tenner. But the food will be super cheap, well, under a fiver, cheese and onion bake, sausage roll, whatever, and the coupes, the champagne coupe, is etched with sausage rolls. I know. It's reservation only.
That's one to put in your handbag, isn't it? Let's be honest.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah.
But last year they did a French kind of inspired dining experience called Bistro. Did you go?
No, I've never been to a Greggs in my life.
Bistro. I've not.
Do you know what? Nor have I, actually.
I haven't.
What's wrong
I'm not
with
boycotting
you?
it. There's one opposite my office.
Yeah.
I've just never
appealed.
There's one near us, yeah.
It's yummy, it's good value.
But they did a French thing called Bistro Greggs in Phoenix, and apparently it was really, really popular. So, yeah, people are excited.
But 75 quid for a glass of champagne?
Well, you could downgrade £10 for the Prosecco.
You'd have to at that rate.
Yeah. But it's the only place around that does champagne by the glass, apparently. But it's good champagne.
Well, you'd hope so.
I was going to say.
Buy a bottle for 25
you get a
quid.
couple of bottles for that. wouldn't you?
It's, Louis Roederer Cristal. By the bottle, yeah, Cristal. It's the Roederer Cristal, and it's £425 a bottle. So I think a glass for 75 is OK.
Oh, well, there you go. Right, we're out of time. Thank you both. Here's
Let's
weather.
have a look at the weather.
Sorry, darling.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there, welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. A much brighter day today for most of us. Sunny spells far and wide, still some showers around, particularly across some western parts. But actually, for many, it's a dry start to the day. We've got the last of Wednesday's rain clearing from the Northern Isles, and just some showers following in for Northern Ireland, parts of southern and western Scotland, Wales and the southwest. These showers will be hit and miss. In between, there'll be some sunshine. The best of the sunshine across the Midlands, eastern and southeastern England, and it will feel mild once again, but not quite as mild as Wednesday, so highs of 16 to 19 Celsius. there is the chance of some thicker cloud and some outbreaks of rain moving into the far southeast by the end of the day, and we'll still have those showers affecting parts of central and western Scotland as well. But as you can see, plenty of clear spells as we go into the evening. Northern Ireland, mixture of clear spells and showers, 1 or 2 showers for Cumbria, parts of Wales and the southwest, but plenty of fine weather through central and eastern parts of the UK. Now, with clear skies widely overnight, it's going to be a cooler night compared with recent nights. A few mist and fog patches are possible, and some patchy cloud, particularly across western parts, especially over the hills. Otherwise, for many, it's a fine start to Friday. Temperatures of 8 to 12 Celsius typically first thing, and feeling pleasant enough in any early sunshine. But things are going to turn more unsettled. Initially for Northern Ireland and Western Scotland, we'll see rain and wind arrive through the morning. The rain moves into Wales and the southwest, the rest of Scotland and eventually northern England, whilst the winds strengthen across many western and northwestern parts. 60-mile-an-hour wind gusts for northwest Scotland, but it stays sunny with lighter winds in the southeast.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. On the M1 in South Yorkshire, the northbound entry slip roads closed at junction 33 from the A630 near Rotherham because of a breakdown causing delays, and also in South Yorkshire, the A635 is closed each way between the Hickleton Crossroads and Mar after an accident. On the M602 in Greater Manchester, the outside lanes closed eastbound after an accident between junctions 2 and 3 from the Trafford Park turn at Eccles to the Regent Road roundabout. It's taking nearly half an hour in queues towards there. On the M2 in Kent, there are 2 lanes closed westbound where a vehicle caught fire between junctions 4 and 3 from Gillingham to the Chatham and Rochester turn, causing delays. And on the M27 in Hampshire, there's a lane closed eastbound for emergency repairs at junction 12 for the M275 at Portsmouth, with queues back beyond junction 11 at Fareham.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
There's only... If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Conservative MPs have finally chosen their top 2 for the leadership. And now, it's over to the members. Join me, Christopher Hope, tonight as Kevin Badenoch and Robert Jenrick are quizzed by Conservative Party members and myself at our GB News leadership event.
And afterwards, join me, Patrick Christys, with a live studio audience and a star panel as we discuss what it means for the Conservative Party and what it means for you. Decision time, the race to lead, from 7 p.m. tonight. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning to you. The pop sensation Liam Payne has died at the age of 31.
The former One Direction member is reported to have fallen from a hotel balcony in Buenos Aires on Wednesday afternoon.
Or tributes flooding in for the hitmaker who played a pivotal role in Britain's biggest boy band.
Tonight, Conservative leadership hopefuls Robert Jenrick and Kemi Badenoch go head-to-head in a GB News special. But do either have what it takes to lead the embattled Tories?
Scottish business leaders issue a new plea to Labour not to increase alcohol duty for fears of it crippling the industry.
Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson joins us this hour as she launches a new funding programme as part of ambitious plans to open 3,000 new nurseries.
The King and Queen are heading down under for an overseas tour, King's first since his cancer diagnosis.
And in a bit, Britain's most decorated Paralympian, Dame Sarah Storey, divulges the secret to her success.
And in other sport this morning, the New England manager Thomas Tuchel has been saying all the right things, but doesn't start his new job until January. In sailing, the America's Cup isn't over yet. Great Britain won 2 races yesterday. And cycling, more cycling, Britain have won their first track World Championship gold since 2008.
Following a gloomy Wednesday with outbreaks of rain for many of us, Thursday's looking much brighter. I'll have the full forecast coming up very soon.
It's just gone 8 o'clock. I'm Stephen Dixon.
I'm Ellie Costello, and this is GB News Breakfast.
All the stories today are about Liam Payne. I mean, I know a lot of you watching and listening will be saying, well, we don't necessarily know quite who he is, or we're not big One Direction fans or whatever. But I guess there's two elements to the story. One is just how big One Direction were. I mean, global, absolutely global sensations. But also the fact that Liam Payne, who found fame at such a young age, has died now tragically at the age of just 31. And that's just horrific, isn't it? Apparently fell from a balcony in a hotel in Buenos Aires.
Well, fans from across the world have come together to pay tribute to the star who helped define a generation of pop music.
Well, apparently he was in Argentina supporting former bandmate Niall Horan, who'd been there on tour. And as is the way these days, he'd been posting on social media until just a couple of hours before this happened.
Well, joining us now is showbiz reporter Stephanie Tetchy. Good to see you this morning, Stephanie. It's just such shocking news, isn't it, that many people will be waking up to this morning?
It's horrible news, Ellie, and as we're seeing on the screen, fans have gathered outside the hotel where Liam Payne fell from a third floor from the hotel, and they've set up impromptu memorials and a vigil for Liam Payne, because that was the power of One Direction. They were a global success. They almost had a cult-like fan base from people who just treasured them, even in their own individual solo journeys. And I think what is quite sad about Liam's death is just all the trauma surrounding it. Local Argentinian police have put out a statement and said that they were called to the hotel in an emergency call to help an aggressive man who appeared to be under the influence of drink and drugs. And, you know, we would rather not want to focus on how it's ended for Liam, but he was a very complex character. Over the years, he's always spoken about his battle with both drink and drugs and dealing with the limelight at such a young age. You know, he found fame at 14 when he appeared on X Factor, but he got rejected. But he came back 2 years later when he joined One Direction, and then within 5 years, they had split up, and he's been kind of left to his own devices, trying to build up a solo career. But he is also a father. He was a father to him and Cheryl Cole's 7-year-old son, Bear. So really thinking about them this morning.
It just goes to show with these things, because we report on stuff like this far too often.
We do.
Don't we? And it is the curse of fame, particularly at a young age, that in a way, people have all this money and not enough to do, not enough direction in life.
Well, that's the sad thing, Stephen. I think it's almost a life of excess, in the sense where you've got the wealth, you've got the fame, you've got the fans, but where do you really go next? You know, what I find with a lot of these groups, such as the Spice Girls and other bands, Boyzone, you always have the one star of the show who can manage to get the success like Harry Styles has. But for everyone else, while they're wealthy, what do they do? How do they carry on? And I've interviewed Liam several times over the years where he's spoken about the loneliness that comes with fame. Just last year, he spent 100 days in rehab, trying to really battle through his addictions. He said he was 6 months sober. So when you come out of such facilities and you're back out around, surrounded by different people at the parties and all that kind of stuff, it's hard to stay on the straight and narrow. But, you know, before his death, he was working on a second album, which he was rewriting certain songs. He was just really trying to get himself out there. He was supporting Niall and his tour in Argentina, but over the past few weeks, he actually had been quite ridiculed in memes with people making fun of him. His former lover was also taking out some legal action against him. So over the next few weeks, I can imagine we are going to see a bigger picture of what was really going on for Liam Payne.
Yes, because what do we understand so far about the circumstances surrounding his death? Because some of the authorities there have been speaking, haven't they, to local media?
Yeah, at the moment they've taken his body for a post-mortem where they're going to examine, but from what we hear so far is in the hotel, he did wake up, he got rather aggressive, which alerted staff at the hotel, and from the circumstances, he fell from the 3rd floor. When the police had arrived, they heard a big sound, a big drop, so there's more to come out on this.
It's just the tragedy. We haven't... we've heard some tributes coming through.
Yeah.
We've not heard from the One Direction boys, have we? I mean, they must be in an absolute state of... You'd imagine, actually, with him and indeed with Cheryl, that they're going to keep quiet for a little while at this stage.
The main
it's understandable.
The main thing Cheryl's going to have to do is tell their 7-year-old son about his father. But I think for the One Direction boys, even though they haven't been together publicly, I think behind closed doors they've been a pivotal source for each other, because, you know, when it comes to understanding the fame and the ups and downs of it, only someone else who's been with you can understand. Zayn Malik over the years has spoken about his anxiety. He fell out with Liam, but recently they came back together. So I think, you know, the boys are going to really have to process this, and it's going to be heartbreaking for them.
Yeah, and it's devastating for fans as well, isn't it? Because, I mean, seeing Liam and Niall together at that concert in Buenos Aires, it did make their fans think perhaps they could get back together, perhaps they'd see a reunion tour, and even if there is a tour now, they'll be missing one member.
We're very much in the era of the reunion bands, and I think for most people, they would have loved for One Direction to come back together. They split up in 2016, so since then, I think fans have still followed all of their journeys, and I think they were secretly hoping they would come back together. But the success that this band had, 70 million records sold worldwide, 4 #1 albums, it just goes to show how actually they've made their dent in the music industry, and I think that's why a lot of people are talking about Liam Payne this morning, even if he's not of their generation. It's just, it's almost like the Beatles of our era. If, like, you know, once John Lennon went, it's just that shock that happens for a lot of people.
OK. Steph, for now, thanks very much indeed.
Thank you very much.
It's just, I really think that success at a young age is so negative. It's so damaging for people, because the minute it stops, then you're lost, aren't you? Unless you are the Harry Styles or the Ronan Keating or, you know, whatever it is. You're lost.
Yeah. And those boys made it so young, didn't they? I mean, they were 15 and 16 at the time. One Direction was over by the time they were 21 years old. I mean, you've got your whole life ahead of you and you've actually already peaked.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you even begin to navigate life after that sort of fame?
Really difficult. And he said, as Steph was saying, he's had a troubled time, but for it to end in this sort of tragedy is just awful.
Yeah, it is.
Awful, awful.
Yeah, and obviously our thoughts are with his family as well. He's got 2 older sisters, leaves behind his parents as well, and of course his son Bear, just 7 years old. Awful.
Right, now, in politics, well, for the Conservative Party at least, today is the day Robert Jenrick and Kemi Badenoch are going to face off in the first televised Tory leadership event.
Yes, Christopher Hope is presiding over the event as both politicians vie to prove themselves.
Well, let's get all the details that we need from our reporter, Adam Cherry. Morning to you, Adam. I mean, the key to this is not just who people think will be the best leader of the Conservative Party, but actually what direction the party is going to take as a result.
Yeah, that's right, guys. So both of these candidates, they're seen as coming from the right of the party. James Cleverly was perhaps the last of the centrist sort of One Nation wing. He might dispute that, but that was certainly the impression that many members would have had going into that contest if he had made it to the final 2. Here we are, we have Robert Jenrick and Kemi Badenoch vying out, sort of fighting over the same kind of terrain, with the exception of the question of the ECHI. It's only Robert Jenrick who is saying he will demand all his MPs to back his plan to leave the ECHR, were his Tory party, to get into government. Now, that's interesting because at least half of those MPs, if not more, are not going to be on board with that plan. And at some point within the MP rounds of this Tory leadership contest, most of MPs will have voted for someone else, most of those Tory MPs. So it will create a bit of a sticking point there. Also take a look at whether they attack each other during this debate or this event. So far, it's been relatively tame. There's been some briefings here and there on social media and in the newspapers, but this yellow card system imposed by the party has meant that they've stayed away from attacking each other openly. Now, we've seen a little bit of change in the direction on that one, with Kemi Badenoch recently saying she's doing a campaign for the grassroots. She's talking to members. She's not running a campaign for the TV screens or the media, which is something that is being seen as an attack on Robert Jenrick, given how enthusiastic he's been to get in front of cameras and chat to people. So unity is a big issue. What they do about the right is a big issue. What they do about reform. And it'll be a very interesting night for both GB News audiences, the party and the country.
You mentioned the One Nation Tories there. Where are we at with reports a few days ago that One Nation Tories, moderate Tories, were looking at spoiling their ballots? They weren't happy with it being two right-wing candidates, as they would see it, on the ballot paper. Do you think that's something that we could really see happen?
I would be surprised if that were to happen. I mean, the Tory membership usually sits on the right of British politics anyway. It might be a little bit of that, but actually what I'm hearing is that the impression amongst members is they're actually quite pleased with this choice between Kemi Badenoch and Robert Jenrick. They're always presented with a more sort of left-wing choice and a right-wing choice, and they inevitably go that direction. So these two, having that sort of debate will be pleasing to most members. Really the question will be amongst the MPs rather than the Tory membership. Those are the ones who might create some trouble. There's only 121 of them, and there have also been some reports that maybe one or two of them will have a look at Ed Davey's Liberal Democrats, which would create some issues, particularly if Robert Jenrick is forcing them to sign up to leaving the ECHR. But that's all down the road. First of all, we have to win this, and we have November 2nd to find out the result of that contest.
OK, Adam, thanks very much indeed.
Now, 13 minutes past 8. The King and Queen are departing the UK today as they head down under for their first Australian tour as monarchs.
But it's already been hit with one or two snags. Now, every state leader has declined an invitation to a reception for their Majesties, which I think is shocking, actually, and disgraceful. Republicans, which within their right, are planning a series of protests.
Well, GB News' royal correspondent Cameron Walker is travelling to Australia as we speak to cover the royal visit, and he sent this report.
We want to put our best foot forward and show the King and Queen what we've got.
History in the making. The first time a reigning king will step foot on Australia's shores. A royal tour that has been months in the planning.
Behind those walls, the royal household have made final preparations for a trip which arguably could be the most important of King Charles's reign so far. His first visit to Australia as the country's head of state.
Standing at last on Australian soil.
The King's mother, the late Queen Elizabeth, visited Australia 16 times during her long reign. And citizens, according to 9 News correspondent Jessica Millward, had a deeply personal connection with her.
It's impossible to overstate the sadness and the outpouring of grief that we saw across Australia when she passed away. And they love Charles. They've grown up watching him. Overwhelmingly, I do feel that the mood will be one of excitement, and we want to put our best foot forward and show the King and Queen what we've got.
The King's medical team have allowed him to pause his weekly cycle of cancer treatment while he's away in Australia and Samoa. Although Buckingham Palace declined to comment, it's understood the programme of engagements have been designed in such a way to allow him time to rest and recover, making sure he's on top form for those engagements. A doctor will also be part of his travelling entourage.
The trip will see their Majesties immerse themselves in Australian culture, including a community barbecue and meeting Indigenous communities. But not everyone is happy their Majesties are coming to Australia, and Republicans are already branding it the farewell tour of Oz, despite referendum plans being put on hold by the government. But Nathan Hansford from the Australian Republic movement believes King Charles will be removed sooner rather than later.
We've always known that there was no referendum planned on the Australian Republic in this term of government, but we're most hopeful that we can get that back on the table in front of the government for them to think about it, at least in the next term of government or the one after that. We're certainly not thinking that this is 10 years away.
But the Australian Monarchist League questions the alternative to a reigning monarch.
I'm simply waiting for the Republicans to produce an idea that really is something more than vague platitudes and appeals to emotional arguments. I don't think anyone will ever really be able to top constitutional monarchy. I'm a monarchist, and that's what I like about our system.
Republicans may have dismissed the upcoming visits before the royal flight leaves UK airspace, but it's up to Australian citizens to judge whether King Charles III is a worthy head of state. Cameron Walker, GB News.
Well, Cameron Walker will be following the royals throughout the week here on GB News Breakfast as he brings us the latest from Down Under.
I wish we'd stop saying down under.
I know. We've said an awful lot this morning.
16 minutes past 8. Let's have a look at some of the other stories today.
UN peacekeepers say an Israeli tank has fired at one of its watchtowers in southern Lebanon. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, has held an emergency meeting on increasing support for Gaza after the US threatened to take away some military support unless Israel boosted aid within 30 days.
Relatives of the Menendez brothers, Lyle and Eric, have gathered in Los Angeles calling for their release. They're serving life sentences for killing their parents in 1989, but there has been a renewed interest in their case after a Netflix series. Apparently, prosecutors have announced they are reviewing evidence.
Bison cattle introduced to Blean Woods in Kent to help tackle the climate crisis have welcomed 2 new calves, bringing the herd's total to 8. The project, run by Kent Wildlife Trust and Wildwood Trust, aims to naturally manage the woodland, restore the ecosystem and support biodiversity.
So what's your views on this? This is Virginia Blackburn in the Express this morning, saying apparently she's reporting that Sir Keir Starmer's new Chief of Staff, Morgan McSweeney, thinks the huge pay rises being awarded to doctors, teachers and the rail unions will go down well with the working class because they'd be seen to be benefiting the average person on the street. She says that's nonsense. I wonder what do you think? I'd be intrigued to know what you think about that.
I don't think a rail driver on 70k is the average person on the street. Doesn't represent the average person on the street.
No, well, no, maybe not. gbnews.com/your say. Just intrigued by that. She says it's absolute rubbish. People don't think that.
Yeah, let us know what you think.
Don't know. Right, shall we see what the weather's going to do?
Let's, with Aidan.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there, and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. A much brighter day today for most of us. Sunny spells far and wide, still some showers around, particularly across some western parts. But actually, for many, it's a dry start to the day. We've got the last of Wednesday's rain clearing from the Northern Isles, and just some showers following in for Northern Ireland, parts of southern and western Scotland, Wales and the southwest. These showers will be hit and miss. In between, there'll be some sunshine. The best of the sunshine across the Midlands, eastern and southeastern England, and it will feel mild once again, but not quite as mild as Wednesday, so highs of 16 to 19 Celsius. There is the chance of some thicker cloud and some outbreaks of rain moving into the far southeast by the end of the day, and we'll still have those showers affecting parts of central and western Scotland as well. But as you can see, plenty of clear spells as we go into the evening. Northern Ireland, mixture of clear spells and showers. 1 or 2 showers for Cumbria, parts of Wales and the southwest, but plenty of fine weather through central and eastern parts of the UK. Now, with clear skies widely overnight, it's going to be a cooler night compared with recent nights. A few mist and fog patches are possible, and some patchy cloud, particularly across western parts, especially of the hills. Otherwise, for many, it's a fine start to Friday. Temperatures of 8 to 12 Celsius typically first thing, and feeling pleasant enough in any early sunshine. But things are going to turn more unsettled. Initially for Northern Ireland and western Scotland, we'll see rain and wind arrive through the morning. The rain moves into Wales and the southwest, the rest of Scotland and eventually northern England, whilst the winds strengthen across many western and northwestern parts. 60-mile-an-hour wind gusts for northwest Scotland, but it stays sunny with lighter winds in the southeast.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Now, time is ticking on for your chance to win £36,000 in cash in the Great British Giveaway. Just over a week left, right?
Yes, it's 1 week tomorrow, actually. So there you go, because 2 weeks is a very long time.
But just over a week is not too bad at all, so make sure you don't miss out. Here are all the details that you need.
There's only 2 on demand. Good luck.
Yes, good luck indeed. Still to come, British Paralympian Dame Sarah Storey will be live with us just after the short break.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
There's a huge financial and mental strain for parents, but we have this system now where it talks about they bringing a family member to help, but I don't think that's happening a lot of the time. I think people are having to be off work, look after their child, and often, sorry to say, but their school always calls the mum, and then you have this situation where you have nobody to look after your child. People's grandparents don't seem to want to do it so much, and often family members aren't just down the road. So what we have is no village. And I think it's really important when you have a child that you need that village.
Are children getting more sicker than they used to be? Or is it just that we take the odd sniffle a bit more seriously now since 2020?
Yes, I do think the odd sniffle can be. I know in my school they say 3 days away, you know, the slightest little thing, and it's like...
If you have a cold?
Yeah, no, please, go in, yeah. And
3 days off if you have a cold for a child, and we wonder why all these parents aren't at work. I think some of these figures about people who could be working and aren't working, they're not necessarily on benefits, but some of them will be people who, during the pandemic, particularly parents, decided to get a different work-life balance. They quite liked being at home, and they realised the children were benefiting from it. Do you think those people are in these statistics, Annette?
Of people staying at home with not working?
Who decided to not go back to work of working age?
Yes, I think a lot of people don't want to go into an office anymore either. They've had that little bit of freedom and they're like, I'm not going in. And I know employers are trying to get them to go in, but they just want to be at home. They want to be near their children if their children are sick, whether that's the mum or the dad. And also a lot of people don't live near their office or wherever. They don't want to commute. Train fares have gone up, so they say, well, why should I pay? So you have this whole knock-on effect throughout the economy.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQs live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQs live here on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Conservative MPs have finally chosen their top 2 for the leadership. And now, it's over to the members. Join me, Christopher Hope, tonight as Kevin Badenoch and Robert Jenrick are quizzed by Conservative Party members and myself at our GB News leadership event.
And afterwards, join me, Patrick Christys, with a live studio audience and a star panel as we discuss what it means for the Conservative Party and what it means for you. Decision time, the race to lead, from 7 p.m. tonight. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm in so much trouble. Paul Coit is here. Good morning.
Yeah, with me.
No, with Elaine,
everybody.
who says paddleboard is popular, Stephen, don't mock it.
But we weren't. We were talking about paddleball.
Paddleball, Elaine.
Do you feel so strongly about paddleball, Elaine? Let us know.
Yes, could care less about paddleball.
No.
In cricket, which is a bit like paddleboard, but different.
England not really had a strong start.
Actually, they have done. It's turned around now. It's gone quite well.
Would you just get out?
Back, lunch on the third day in the second test, the second innings, Pakistan, 43 for 3. So as soon as you said that, and I went, actually not going so well, England went and took 3 innings, 3 wickets. So that was for you. So Pakistan lead by 118 runs, England yet to bat. Little cycling from a place called Ballerup in Denmark. It's the World Track Cycling. 2008, last time we won a gold medal.
Oh, that's that Emma Finucane.
She's really something else, isn't
We're doing well.
Brilliant.
Along with Sophie Capewell and Katie Marchant in the team sprint. They won gold yesterday. So, like I say, first track gold champion since 2008. Talking of cycling.
Yes.
There's a National Lottery celebrating great sport game changers. Some of the great sporting... it's all to celebrate their 30th anniversary. And one of them they're celebrating, who is one of my favourite sports stars of all time. Probably, certainly our most successful Paralympian. We had Richard Whitehead on yesterday. This one is unbelievable. Dame Sarah Storey is with us. Morning, Sarah.
Good morning.
Listen, it's great to see you. Game changer, you've certainly been that. Where do you keep all of your medals? There are so many. 19 golds just from Paralympics alone. Is there a place, or are they scattered around the house?
They're in various socks, just to keep them nice and shiny.
Is that right? And every now and again, another one will come out and we'll have a look at it.
Yes, I'm on odd numbers, aren't I? So somewhere there's a stray sock that needs to be filled.
I can imagine a lot of people have problems with putting the wrong socks in the washing and maybe losing one. You don't want to lose any of your socks because of everything in them.
Yeah.
It was a great summer. I always wonder, straight after an Olympics or a Paralympics, it's straight afterwards, I guess, is the most difficult part because there's so much work that goes into it and the excitement of winning, and then there's probably that lull after that. So how are you feeling now? Because it was a hell of a summer for you again.
Yeah, it was an incredible summer. Actually, I'm finding that I'm juggling things more than ever, really. There's so many opportunities out there. I want to be able to say yes to as many of them as possible and to be able to celebrate with the people that have helped me get to where I've got to, not just this year, but obviously in the years in the run-up. So for me, there's been a huge amount of juggling going on in the last few weeks. And it's been really interesting to hear other people's stories about how they manage those juggles themselves.
What are you going to do going forward? Because I always imagine that anybody that ever competes against you, probably every Olympics, another one comes up, another Paralympics comes up and go, she's going again. That means we're going to be in trouble. Are you looking forward now, or is this a time of reflection?
Still very much a time of reflection and just looking through the next few weeks and months, really, just to get myself back into training, doing some other things, just getting that headspace, really, to be able to think about the enormity of what I achieved. Tokyo was where I kind of surpassed Mike Kenny in terms of the most gold medals won by a British Paralympian. And I was adding to that in Paris. So it was a different type of pressure. And also my children could be there. So it's very much still a time of reflection, and thinking about the future is something that won't happen immediately. I think I've earned the right to have a few extra days, weeks to think about what's happened to me and to see where I want to take it next.
How do you handle that, though, looking back on everything that you've achieved? Because people like me will always say how amazing it is. I remember meeting you quite a few years ago at the World Championships when it was at the Velodrome in London. You know, you would never know from your personality the star that you are. Have you managed to keep that? It must be a very difficult thing to keep when everybody's saying how great you are all the time.
Oh, I think so. I mean, I'm learning to ice skate at the moment. I'm absolutely rubbish at that. So it keeps you, well, feet on the ice, I suppose, is the best way to put it. But yeah, no, I think very much still the same person that I was. I've had friends say, you know, we met you 30 years ago and we don't really think you've changed, which is a huge compliment. I've obviously got 2 children. And Barney and I have been married 17 years now. So we've done a lot together, and we've had a lot of things to celebrate with friends and family. And children keep you grounded, and it's the least selfish job in the world, being a parent. So it's a good yin and yang, I think, with sport.
Sure, I guess the kids don't have to call you Dame there and bow down to you or any of that, do you? So it keeps your feet on the ground. It always amazes me, though, is that the your route to stardom and success? Because for those that don't know, you were very successful as a swimmer, but I think probably most people would know you as a cyclist now. So how did that route work, and how did you get into that? 'Cause you were very young when you started.
I was very young. I started when I was 6. I learned, I was first competition. I'd learned to swim as a 4-year-old at my primary school swimming club. And it was really quite unusual in those days for a primary school to have a swimming club. But we had the most amazing head teacher called Chris Parker, who was just sport mad. And with the exception of the boys' cricket team, I did every single sport possible. I did try and make it onto the boys' cricket team. And I just swam just every week, like most of the children at the school. And I eventually started training as a 10-year-old and was told I might be a little bit too old to be any good. So 4 years later, when I came home from Barcelona with 2 gold medals, it was a kind of, well, there you go then. Never say Sarah can't do something, because she'll just go ahead and prove you wrong.
And then does someone just say, you know what, I love the way you swim, you'd be great on a bike?
No, not quite. I did 4 games in the swimming pool. And then at the end of 2004, so 20 years ago, it's hard to believe, I decided I needed to do something different during the winter. So I went across to the velodrome to learn to ride on the track. And that was as terrifying as it is learning to ice skate, I think. The banks of the velodrome, no brakes, 1 gear, fixed wheel. If you start to try and freewheel, it'll cause you to crash. So I went to learn how to ride around the velodrome in Manchester, and I ended up starting to race the following year, and that led to me being selected for the British cycling team in the summer of 2005. And by that point, we knew we were going to have a home games in London. So for me, at that point, it was very much a case of, well, am I getting a little bit old to be a swimmer? And could I actually take on a new sport and try and reach the top in that as well? So with the help of my swimming coach at the time, Colin Hood, he helped me make the decision and basically said, on your bike.
Literally. Was that your favourite games, though? Was it London? Was that the one for you? I mean, you've been to so many since '92.
Yeah, I think my favourite games of all would probably be London. Barney and I won gold medals on the same day for the second successive games.
Yep.
So it's certainly in terms of the crowds and the attention the games got. But Paris as well, having Louisa and Charlie both there, was just so special. And equally having Louisa there on the roadside in Rio and the trackside was just as cool. But yeah, it's very, very difficult to choose between any of them, really.
Sarah, I'm going to ask you one more time. I'm going to throw it in there. Los Angeles, 4 years away. What are the chances, do you think? Is there a percentage? Is there a chance you're going to go again?
Well, I'm not going to do an Adam Peaty, I don't think. There's a huge chance I'll be there. I really would love to be able to race again at the very top. So I just need to make sure that I can get all the pieces in place in the right order to make sure. It's a long time, 4 years, but I'm looking forward to seeing if I'm up for the challenge.
Great. I'll take that as a yes. I'll take that as a probably. We'll see. Listen, one more. It's really great to speak to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Wow. Dame Sarah Storey.
What an amazing lady, actually.
Absolutely incredible.
To be that skilled and that successful and to be that normal. I mean, you'd just go and sit next to her in the coffee shop and have a chinwag, wouldn't you?
Absolutely. I've said it about sports people in the past. It's more impressive when you meet someone who is very down to earth, because you think of everything everybody's always saying to them, always everybody bowing down to them. To find someone that's very normal is much more commendable than it is annoying when you see someone that acts a bit big for their boots. But she's fantastic.
I think that's amazing. What an amazing lady.
Yeah, and so talented as well. Turn her hand to anything.
And by the way, if she's going in 4 years, I've decided that I'll do the same.
Yeah,
all right.
might as well.
To watch.
Yeah. Right, lovely stuff. Thank you very much indeed.
Now, do stay with us. Still to come, the latest on the tragic death of the pop star Liam Payne at the age of 31. That's next.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. On the M62 in West Yorkshire, the outside lanes closed westbound after an accident between junctions 32A and 32 towards Pontefract, causing delays. The M60 in Greater Manchester is partly blocked clockwise just after junction 24 at Denton Island, with queues from junction 23 at Ashton-under-Lyne. On the M5 near Bristol, there are southbound queues after traffic was stopped because of an accident between junctions 16 and 17 from Aztec West to the Cribbs Causeway. In London, the A4 is partly blocked blocked eastbound by an accident at Warwick Road at Earl's Court, with queues from the Hogarth roundabout in Chiswick. And on the M27 in Hampshire, there's a lane closed eastbound for emergency repairs at junction 12 for the M275 at Portsmouth, with queues back beyond junction 10 at Wickham. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop star to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's 8:38, and of course the main news this morning is that shocking news about Liam Payne from One Direction, who's died in Argentina. Well, we found out late last night, at the age of 31. A man who'd enjoyed so much fame, but with it, as is often the case, came a lot of problems for him.
Well, joining us now is showbiz reporter Sarah Robertson. Good to see you this morning, Sarah. And this is just such shocking news, isn't it?
It's unbelievable, horrific. What an appalling tragedy, Ellie and Stephen, to wake up this morning to those shocking, shocking headlines. As you said, 31 these days is no age at all. And Liam was someone who seemed like he had so much to live for. He was blessed with a 7-year-old beautiful boy, Bear, which he had with his ex-partner, Cheryl Tweedy. He had grown up in the spotlight, really. He was 16 when he first found fame, when One Direction were put together by Simon Cowell from his show, The X Factor. And then he was plunged into the spotlight. But out of the 5 members of the band, Liam always seemed, I don't know, to seem the more down-to-earth one of the 5. He was very family-orientated, very close to his family back home in the UK. And then when the band had their hiatus, which eventually led to the split, he went off and had quite a successful solo career with songs such as Strip Me Down, being used in the film 50 Shades of Grey. I think that charted very, very high in the charts. And he was due to come back on television screens, actually, with Netflix. He was filming a new pop show where he was going to be like a judge, same as what Simon Cowell was when they did X Factor. And he was going to be filming that with Kelly Rowland and Nicole Scherzinger. And Nicole was one of the people who helped put One Direction together. So it was sort of like Liam was coming round in a circle, shall we say, in terms of his career trajectory. And then to see his life sort of snuffed out so suddenly, and abroad in a foreign hotel in a foreign country, it's just absolutely shocking.
It is that shock, isn't it? And the fact that we don't know at this stage quite what's happened.
No, that's right. The Argentinian police, I mean, they are releasing reports. They have been quite candid with the press. I think they have different press rules there than we do, but they have been quite open. They said they were called to the hotel at local time just after 5 o'clock yesterday afternoon. Reports of a man who had fallen from the 3rd floor balcony of his hotel room, but unfortunately injuries weren't sustainable, and the poor lad was pronounced dead at the scene. There is going to be an autopsy. There is going to be a post-mortem. There's an investigation being launched because other reports from eyewitnesses at the hotel sort of paint a picture of Liam's final few hours on Earth, and his behaviour was described as erratic. That was the word that was used. The word that was also used was aggressive. I say this is what's been reported. I'm not saying this myself. I'm just repeating what's been reported. These are all alleged at the moment, allegations, but it sort of paints a scene of a man who maybe wasn't as happy as his last images on social media had portrayed. In the lead up to his death, he had posted on the social media forum Snapchat a throwback photograph of himself with his current partner, the model Kate Cassidy. They had been in Argentina together on holiday. They had arrived on the 30th of September. They'd gone to see Liam's former bandmate Niall Horan in concert in Argentina. He seemed to be having a grand old time. He had spoken about their trip, sharing photos with his fans on his social media forums, saying he was having quality time. I believe Miss Cassidy flew out from Argentina the day before, the 14th of October. She had flown elsewhere, and Liam was left in his hotel room and had been sort of conversing through social media with his fans, as I say, sharing these throwback photographs, but also seemed to be quite happy in them. He did like a short video saying about Halloween and what should he wear. So he looked like he was looking forward, but you sort of wonder what had happened in those few hours between that last social media post and then the tragedy that's unfolding before us now.
Sarah Robertson, for now, thank you.
Just such tragic news, isn't it? It really is. And legions of fans all around the world will be absolutely devastated at this news. We've seen the fans already gathering outside the hotel, haven't we?
It's really sad. Very, very
tribute,
sad.
Lighting candles. There's a shrine being erected outside that hotel in Buenos Aires as we speak.
Right, we're going to go through the papers for you in just a couple of minutes, so don't go anywhere.
Conservative MPs have finally chosen their top 2 for the leadership. And now, it's over to the members. Join me, Christopher Hope, tonight as Kevin Badenoch and Robert Jenrick are quizzed by Conservative Party members and myself at our GB News leadership event.
And afterwards, join me, Patrick Christys, with a live studio audience and a star panel as we discuss what it means for the Conservative Party and what it means for you. Decision time, the race to lead, from 7 p.m. tonight. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
My kingdom for a voice. Scientists have, I can't believe this story, scientists have incredibly recreated the voice of Richard III using both his skull shape and a knowledge of medieval speech patterns. Me neither. The result is that the king, who was famously killed at the Battle of Bosworth in 1485, would have spoken in English close to that of a man from modern-day Yorkshire or Somerset. Let's take a listen.
The sun shines with no less licht and splendour, nor does it suffer any diminution of its strength.
Let's discuss this further with Yvonne Morley-Chisholm, the voice coach behind the project, who spent 10 years researching how the monarch would have sounded. Yvonne, you can probably see from my face, I have no idea how this works. Can you enlighten me as to what all this is about?
Yes, thank you very much indeed, Dawn. So yes, I had a mad idea 10 years ago. I normally work with actors where we have a recording of a historical person, and we do something called vocal profiling to train the actor who's going to be performing on stage or screen to move their tongue tip, their jaw, their lips, everything, and get behind the personality of who they're playing. We obviously have quite a lot of that missing from Richard. We don't have a recording of him, but I wondered how far we could go. And a key player in this has been and is Professor Caroline Wilkinson, who over a decade ago created his face, first of all, from his skull. Now, on the day we, as Shakespeare would say, shuffle off our mortal coil, every little dent and dimple in the bones says how fit and strong the muscles were. So I thought, OK, we know what his face could do.
GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Time for just a very quick look at 8:47 at some of the papers with political commentator Andy Williams and the journalist and writer Emma Wolfe. Morning, you two.
Morning.
Morning. Andy, can we have a look at the inflation? This is in the Times. It's 1.7%. Does this mean interest rates are going to come down?
Well, you would have thought so. And I think lots of people, whether they're people who are looking to renew their mortgages soon or looking to get on the housing ladder, that will be very, very welcome. So in many ways, I think it's a good thing overall for the economy, but of course you don't want inflation to come down too far. But generally, I think the government will be pleased with these figures. Looking ahead to the budget in just under 2 weeks' time, and obviously we're expecting a really, probably the most consequential budget that we've had in a very, very, very long time. Huge tax rises coupled with some pretty significant, nasty spending cuts, actually. So, yeah, all eyes on the budget in a few weeks' time.
Yeah, Emma, what do you make of it?
Yeah, it's all to play for. I think a lot of people, I mean, normal people, people who aren't even into politics and the machinations of the different parties and everything, are genuinely aware of the fact that there could be a lot of pain to come. But for normal people at the end of October, I think the pensioner, the winter fuel thing has really put this on the agenda for regular folk who are thinking, genuinely worried about their bills this winter, about income tax, about national insurance. People running small businesses, people just trying to, the majority of people in this country running small businesses employ fewer than 10 people.
No, I think that's right. And I saw
workers' rights, all of this
front of the
stuff.
Times today has gone on the fact that there's going to be an increase in capital gains tax on shares, and that is obviously going to hit some people hard.
Yeah.
But it's actually quite small. That's 350,000 people pay that tax, but we're looking at some national insurance rise for employers that will ultimately affect employees.
Yeah, and they're working people
exactly.
too,
Yeah.
employers are working people,
Yeah.
exactly. So I think...
Right, we've only got a minute.
OK.
Because we've got to squeeze in the Education Secretary. It's why we're pushed for time. Should we have a look at the Sterling Prize? Because the Elizabeth line has won this great prize.
Yeah, well, it has, and I hope this isn't too London-centric, but it's this new, the purple line, we call it in London, don't we?
The Lizzie
the purple line. Yeah, exactly. Do you call it the Lizzie line?
Yeah.
I call it Lizzie line.
I don't. Anyway, it's won the Sterling Prize. It's got the longest platforms, the biggest tunnels and the fastest trains on the London Underground. It is, as a lifelong Londoner, born and bred in London, it is a pretty amazing architectural kind of feat, isn't it?
Yeah,
the
just
Elizabeth
the
line.
scale of it is unbelievable,
It cost
actually.
a lot of money, and it was quite a few years late. But in terms of the connections as well, the way it connects parts of London, it is pretty amazing. And I think it's...
I don't think give it a prize.
To give it a prize? It's weird to give it the Sterling Prize. But I think it's also a lovely tribute to our late Queen.
Well, indeed.
Yeah, that's true.
Right, thanks
you
both.
too.
So it's brief. We have got the Education Secretary heading away in a couple of minutes, but first, here's the weather.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there, and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. A much brighter day today for most of us. Sunny spells far and wide. Still some showers around, particularly across some western parts. But actually, for many, it's a dry start to the day. We've got the last of Wednesday's rain clearing from the Northern Isles, and just some showers following in for Northern Ireland, parts of southern and western Scotland, Wales and the southwest. These showers will be hit and miss. In between, there'll be some sunshine. The best of the sunshine across the Midlands, eastern and southeastern England, and it will feel mild once again, but not quite as mild as Wednesday, so highs of 16 to 19 Celsius. There is the chance of some thicker cloud and some outbreaks of rain moving into the far southeast by the end of the day, and we'll still have those showers affecting parts of central and western Scotland as well. But as you can see, plenty of clear spells as we go into the evening. Northern Ireland, mixture of clear spells and showers. 1 or 2 showers for Cumbria, parts of Wales and the southwest, but plenty of fine weather through central and eastern parts of the UK. Now, with clear skies widely overnight, it's going to be a cooler night compared with recent nights. A few mist and fog patches are possible, and some patchy cloud, particularly across western parts, especially of the hills. Otherwise, for many, it's a fine start to Friday. Temperatures of 8 to 12 Celsius typically first thing, and feeling pleasant enough in any early sunshine. But things are going to turn more unsettled. Initially for Northern Ireland and western Scotland, we'll see rain and wind arrive through the morning. The rain moves into Wales and the southwest, the rest of Scotland and eventually northern England, whilst the winds strengthen across many western and northwestern parts. 60-mile-an-hour wind gusts for northwest Scotland, but it stays sunny with lighter winds in the southeast.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In South Yorkshire, the A635 is closed between Hickleton and Marr after an accident. There are a number of road closures, especially across parts of the northwest of England because of flooding. On Merseyside, the A580 East Lancs Road's closed westbound from the A58 to the A571 at St Helens, causing long delays. On Merseyside, the A506 is closed eastbound towards junction 6 of the M57 at Kirby, and in Shropshire, the A49 is closed between Marshbrook and Craven Arms. In Bedfordshire, the A421 is closed eastbound off the A6 at the Marshalleys roundabout south of Bedford after an accident causing long delays heading away from the M1 into Bedford. In London, the A4 is partly blocked eastbound by an accident at Warwick Road Earls Court with queues from the Hogarth roundabout in Chiswick. And on the M27 in Hampshire, there's a lane closed eastbound for repairs at junction 12 at Portsmouth, causing queues.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
We love making our audience big cash winners, and you really could be next with £36,000 tax-free cash in your...
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
.55, morning to you. We're just waiting for the Education Secretary to rock up at our camera.
Yes.
She hasn't done yet. So in the meantime, you've been loads of you getting in touch about a whole host of stuff, but I just wanted to touch on these the football.
Yes.
Because we've not had a chance to talk about this a great deal today. Thomas Tuchel, who is now the England manager on an 18-month contract, so they're trying him out. But a German for the England team, it's very difficult, isn't it? Kevin says he's not the right man for the England job. Not because he's German, but because he's divisive and disrupts the dressing rooms wherever he goes.
Yeah, but then Malcolm says, expecting Tuchel to sing the national anthem. There were questions at that press conference yesterday whether or not he was going to sing the national anthem. Malcolm says he's managing the team, not applying for citizenship.
Yeah, fair point. Jim says the national football manager really ought to be of the same nationality because he's part of the team, really. I don't think anyone cared when it was Sven-Göran Eriksson. I think it's because it's German.
I think it's the historic rivalry. Yeah, I think that's what it is. Dick's been in touch saying more rubbish. The FA would struggle to find 10 people who'd want the England manager's job. It's a poisoned chalice.
Yeah, that's because the FA was saying they had 10 people lined up for it, which I think is a bit unlikely.
I don't know how many Englishmen were in the running for that. I was listening to Harry Redknapp yesterday, who was saying that because there's so few English managers in the Premiership, they won't get a look into those top jobs. They're not going to bring people up from the Championship.
No, well, they wouldn't, would they?
No. So he's saying that's the problem. We need to get more Englishmen into the Premier League, and then they'll be in for the top jobs. But that's quite interesting, isn't it?
It's interesting, isn't it, though, that obviously this news was announced last week to our interim manager, who obviously after his matches that didn't go very well decided to announce that, well, hopefully he could move back to the under-21s. Well, he was clearly
Isn't
not
that
interested in the job, so
interesting?
he must have known.
He must have known, because that was very sudden, wasn't it? Oh, I don't want this job, because we all thought he was actually auditioning, didn't we, for the role as England manager. And it looked as though he could be quite interested in the role to start with, and then very quickly last week shut it down.
Yeah. Mind you, it didn't go well for him, did it?
No, it didn't. And Susan says, why should he sing our national anthem? It's God Save Our King. He's German, not British. So it's dividing you.
But to be fair, I thought in the press conference he gave, he was very good, actually, because he's thrown all these questions. He apologised for not having a British passport. He said he hadn't decided whether he'd sing the anthem or not. He did it all with good humour. And I thought that was quite interesting, really.
He'd had some media training, I would suggest. He was quite good at answering those questions. Kept it quite vague, but very polite, good-humoured, as you said. And saying the right things as well, saying he's proud, he's very privileged to take on this role, and he's looking forward to it.
But as Kevin says, if he does disrupt the dressing room, is that necessarily a bad thing? I'm not convinced it is a bad thing. I think, a bit of tough love might be the answer.
But that's what Paul Coit was saying, wasn't it? We're used to Gareth Southgate is more of a softly approach, maybe a bit hesitant, maybe a bit slow to make a call on things. Maybe we do need someone who is disruptive.
Is he going to be the equivalent of Alex Ferguson?
Yes.
Who didn't mince his words, did he? So maybe that's the way forward.
Because the talent is there, quite clearly. We're always so close and yet so far.
Oh, look
so
at
it'd be nice. It's very frustrating. And it'd be nice to get our hands on some silverware. Saying me like I've got anything to do with it, but watching from the sidelines, I think it would be nice to see the three lions actually pick up some silverware. Is he the man that could do it? That's the question.
We shall find out. So 18 months, it's not a very long contract, but of course, it does take us into the World Cup. So if we do all right in the World Cup, then one would imagine he'll be offered a longer contract. So there you go. And look, as you probably gathered, we haven't seen any sign of the Education Secretary as yet, but hopefully she will turn up before too long. In the meantime, let's find out what's happening for you this morning. A very good morning to you. The pop sensation Liam Payne has died at the age of 31.
Yes, the former One Direction member is reported to have fallen from a hotel balcony in Buenos Aires on Wednesday afternoon.
Well, tributes, of course, flooding in for the hitmaker who played a pivotal role in Britain's biggest boy band.
Tonight, Conservative leadership hopefuls Robert Jenrick and Kemi Badenoch go head-to-head in a GB News special. But do either have what it takes to lead the embattled Tories?
Scottish business leaders issue a new plea to Labour not to increase alcohol duty for fears of crippling the industry. And with any luck, we'll talk to the Education Secretary as she launches a new programme to fund some new nurseries within our schools.
King Charles and Queen Camilla head down under in their most significant overseas tour since his cancer diagnosis.
Following a gloomy Wednesday with outbreaks of rain for many of us, Thursday's looking much brighter. I'll have the full forecast coming up very soon.
just gone 9 o'clock. I'm Stephen Dixon.
I'm Ellie Costello, and this is GB News Breakfast. Loads of views coming in this morning on the very sad news, the death of Liam Payne at the age of 31, the One Direction star. Adrian says, rest in peace, Liam Payne. He was a really good singer in One Direction. He's going to be sadly missed by his family, his friends and his fans.
And Jenny says, it's quite shocking. What a tragic loss of life. Let's talk to entertainment reporter Stephanie Tecci, who's here. I mean, this is... Not everyone's going to quite understand it. They'll see the tragedy of a young man dying at 31, but he is, I mean, to a generation, One Direction were like the Beatles.
So many people have watched Liam Payne's rise to fame. You know, people watched him in 2008 where he had that first audition on X Factor where Simon Cowell rejected him and said, come back in 2 years, which he did. But he said from that first rejection, he was devastated. He didn't think actually he would be able to get a pop career. And God, he was wrong because he managed to turn it round once he joined One Direction. And they had this stratospheric kind of success where they just shot to stardom. And to be honest, with One Direction, I would say that they've got this heavy fan base who have been quite loyal to them even since they went their separate ways in 2016. And you know, his death is really a double-edged sword because you're hearing all the traumatic details of his death, but then also he was this pop icon, and it's just very much of this live fast, die young kind of ethos, which is quite sad about this story, and chilling details are emerging about what happened. Unfortunately, what's coming out in reports is that he fell 45 feet from the third floor balcony. From calls, the hotel said that local staff had phoned and said that he was behaving erratically and he had smashed his laptop. And unfortunately, there's pictures online which are yet to be verified of the room. But it's just, it's so horrible for fans to even hear about this stuff and to talk about it today.
Well, Steph, I believe we've got a clip of that 999 call.
Oh, well, these some of the scenes, actually, I mean, this is the 999 call being played out on local television there, which obviously is not in English, but it's, I mean, it's the fact, as you say, that, I mean, if there were the idea that this is a man who was, for whatever reason, falling apart in the last few hours.
Well, it's more than the last few hours, Stephen. I think it's been the last few years for Liam Payne. Like, he tried to launch a successful solo career. He didn't enjoy the same success Harry Styles has, and he's always been quite open in interviews where I've spoken to him about his battles with loneliness and depression. Last year, he spent 100 days in rehab trying to fight his addiction. So there's always this thing with fame. There's a price to pay. You can have all the money in the world, but how do you deal with not having that routine of being in a boy band anymore and having all this money to your disposable wealth in that sense? And unfortunately for him, he leaves behind a 7-year-old son who he had with Cheryl Cole. So I can't imagine what's going on for them and also for One Direction. But there is a lot of questions being asked about his girlfriend, Kate Cassidy, who he had been with for 2 years. People have thought that she was with him at the time, but it turns out she had left Argentina 2 days prior.
Which is... So, as you say, it raises a lot of questions about, or not to cast any aspersions on any of this. But this is the issue, the problem with all of this, isn't it? That we know he was an incredibly successful and very rich person who was also very troubled, tragically. And then all this happens and we just don't have the answers.
And that's the thing. It's hard when, you know, for his family, I can imagine making that journey to Argentina where they deal with things differently to how we do in the UK. They've been quite transparent. They named him straight away, where over here they would rather do a lot of information gathering. And I think with Liam Payne, the story will emerge over the next few weeks / months. But unfortunately for him, over the past few weeks, he was being ridiculed online for his recent public appearances. So there's a lot more to come in this story, and it's just a tragedy all round.
OK. Stephanie, good to see you this morning.
Thank you for having me on.
Thank you very much.
OK, there's quite a lot of politics about today. Some of it's a bit speculative, of course, because a lot of it's around the budget, which is a couple of weeks away, but we've already been told by the Prime Minister, well, brace yourselves, it's going to be horrible. Which isn't very reassuring, is it? And yet money is still being spent. One of those spending money is the Education Secretary, Bridget Phillipson, who joins us now from Westminster. Good to see you this morning. And look, I know you're not talking huge amounts of money here, but you are talking about either adding or increasing somewhat 300 nurseries or so that are already based within schools?
Hello, good morning. What I'm setting out today is the investment that we want to make in providing school-based nurseries. So a £15 million pot that schools will be able to bid into from today to create more provision within primary schools. We have falling roles within primary schools, so fewer young people coming through primaries. And we want to use that space to create early years provision because we know that's where we make the biggest difference to children's life chances. And it also allows parents to work. And there are lots of pressures at the moment in terms of places that parents tell me they're experiencing.
Experts warning this morning that this plan, an ambitious one, is just a sticking plaster solution. These are understaffed, chronically understaffed nurseries already, aren't they? They don't have the space for staff to deal with this new demand. Who are you going to get to run these nurseries? How are you going to attract a new workforce?
I completely acknowledge that this isn't the entire answer. This is an important first step in how we deliver our plans to roll out more school-based nurseries. So this is in primary schools where school leaders, where head teachers have often told me that they would love the chance to do this, but they require extra money in terms of capital investment in order to deliver more places. But absolutely alongside that, we need to do more around staffing. There's a lot that we've got underway already. And we'll be setting out an early years strategy to set out how we intend to change the system overall to make it more effective where it comes to the support we need for parents and children.
Yeah, but that means money, doesn't it? Because in making it more effective, obviously you've got to have the places and the staff, but also you've got to be able for the children to go, which means a lot of them are going to have to be supported. Now, look, parents will be jumping for joy at the possibility of that, but it all falls within this thing where we're taking money off pensioners. We're expecting this massive tax-raising budget in a couple of weeks. So people are going to say, is this really the priority we need at the moment?
I think education does need to be a big priority for our country, both in terms of early years, because we know that far too many children arrive at school not ready to learn because they haven't had the best start in life, and lots of parents tell me about the challenges that they face, but also on skills too. So you mentioned there about the state of the economy. We need to ensure that people have chances right throughout their working lives to get on at work, to take on new skills, especially as technology advances and so much happens so quickly. And our young people too, more apprenticeship starts. So all of that is the work that I've been doing as Education Secretary. Of course, there are big pressures overall. I think all of your viewers would recognise the state of the public finances, public services, very difficult at the moment. But the budget in just under a fortnight will be about how we fix those foundations, how we stabilise the economy and how we demonstrate that we're taking our country in a better direction.
Can we talk about the budget for a moment? Because there is so much nervousness surrounding this budget on the 30th of October. Reports in the papers today that several government departments have written to the Prime Minister to express concerns about cuts ahead of the budget. There is this air of nervousness, of fear about what's to come in 2 weeks' time. How is the Labour Party going to inject confidence? Because we can't have growth, we can't have investment in this country without confidence first.
We do face some tough choices, and that's the inheritance the Conservatives left behind. But I think what you will have seen on Monday with the investment summit that the Prime Minister hosted here in London was investors, businesses, big businesses from around the world coming and investing in our country, showing that they do have confidence in the stability that this new government brings, and that will create thousands of jobs right across our country. Of course, there is so much more that we need to do. We recognise this. After 14 years of the Conservatives, there are lots of problems that your viewers will see every day in their lives, and that's why it is crucial that in the budget we start the process of fixing those foundations in order to get growth back, in order to deliver better living standards for people across our country.
I'm intrigued slightly because you said people have confidence in the stability this new government brings. You often do get a sense of stability with a new government. you haven't with this one. I mean, why is that? You've got to admit, haven't you, that people do not feel confident. They do not feel that they understand what this government is doing at the moment.
Every government has its ups and downs, of course we do, but what we saw on Monday with investors, with big global businesses coming to Britain to invest in our country, they recognise the stability and certainty that a new government has brought. For example, in the area around planning, or on making sure that we move to more, renewable forms of energy that will cut people's bills in the long run. That show of strength, that clarity and that purpose is what allows businesses to plan with confidence.
Can I ask you about, because one of the big things, of course, it was going to fund a lot of changes within schools, and it was an absolute crucial part of your manifesto was VAT on private schools. Now, it's controversial. A lot of people don't like it. However, the reporting has been over the last couple of weeks that you don't even know quite when that's going to be brought in now, that perhaps that January date has slipped. Can you tell us when this policy will be enacted?
It will be in January 2025, and I would just point out that actually this is very popular with the majority of voters, because the majority of people watching this programme who have children of school age will be sending their children to state schools, because that's where the majority of our children go to school, and that's why we have taken this decision to end the tax breaks that private schools enjoy, to make sure that our state schools are getting more support.
What are you going to give state schools this influx of private school pupils who will be flooding into the state system because their parents can't afford private school fees any longer?
Well, I don't accept that, and mainly because private schools have put up their fees year on year, way beyond inflation. Lots of families who in the past who might have considered a private school place for their children, and that's entirely their choice. Parents have the right to choose where they educate their children. They've seen huge increases in fees. So I think, private schools as businesses have choices about how they spend their money, how they manage their budgets. That's something that state schools have had to do with some skill and expertise in recent years, given the difficulties they faced under the last Conservative government.
What provision are you making, because this has come up a lot, what provision are you making for those children with special educational needs who, for whatever reason end up getting the best education they can get is within the private sector? They've got to be protected, haven't they?
So for children who have education, health and care plans, and where that specifies that a private place is required in order to meet their needs, that will continue. There'll be no additional costs arising to parents as a result of that. But what I would say is that, again, the majority of children in our country who have special educational needs and disabilities go to school within the state sector. And I know that it's really tough at the moment for far too many parents, for far too many children. And I know how hard it is at times for schools too. That's why we are determined to turn it around. It's why we're investing more in early language support, because that's a big challenge for lots of children. It's why I've refocused the work of the Department for Education on special education needs and disabilities, because, as one Conservative shadow minister said just the other week, they should hang their heads in shame about the state of what they'd left behind.
Okay, Bridget Phillipson, we're out of time with you, I'm afraid, but thank you for speaking to us this morning on GB News.
Yes, her advisor's not very happy because
we're being told off.
But
there's so much
turn up late.
Yeah, and there's so much to ask. And there's so much to ask.
Well, there you go. So we did overrun with her slightly, but it's nice to be fair, and to be fair to the government when they come on the show. That's what they should be doing, and they've been a bit shy about doing it. So let's get them back on.
Yeah,
and let's hear what they have to say.
Good to see Bridget Phillipson today. Yeah.
They need to be asked these questions. It's the whole point of what they do.
Yeah. Let us know what you think of that one. gbnews.com/your say. Yes,
should we have a look at the Tories?
Let's have a look at the Tories, because today's the day. Robert Jenrick and Kemi Badenoch set to face off in the first televised Tory leadership event right here on GB News at 7 p.m.
Yes, Adam Cherry is standing by for us. Are you chomping at the bit, Adam?
Absolutely, yes. Let's just explain what's going to happen tonight very quickly. So 5-minute opening pitches for both candidates. Then they have 40 minutes each to answer questions from our political editor, Christopher Hope, and crucially, members of the audience. That'll be really interesting because those are often the toughest questions. What are they going to say? Well, you might hear things on immigration, ECHR, but also crucially, why are you the right person? Because both of these candidates have their fingerprints all over the decisions made by the last government, by the last Tory government, who were resoundingly defeated just 3 months ago. Kemi Badenoch was the Housing Secretary, and Robert Jenrick was the Immigration Minister. He may have resigned in December 2023, but nonetheless, there are going to be serious questions over whether these two are in a position, as they claim, to take the Tories from opposition into government again in just 5 years. So much to look forward to.
OK, Adam, for now, thank you.
Now, time is ticking on for your chance to win £36,000 in the Great British Giveaway.
8 days left to enter.
Precisely. Marked in the calendar. Here's all the details you need.
We love making our audience big cash winners, and you really could be next with £36,000 tax-free cash in your bank account.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
National Trust Director General has said something rather curious. She's admitted that 70% of the charity's staff are Union Jack-hating progressive activists. Yes, this was speaking at a Labour Party fringe event. The boss of the charity, Hilary McGrady, acknowledged that there was a gap between her staff's views and the views held by the wider public. So was she being honest? Joining me now to discuss this is historian and broadcaster Rafe Hadel-Mancu, who I believe is with me. Rafe, thank you very much indeed. Can this be true?
The founders of the National Trust and later figures involved in it, like my hero James Lees-Milne, were really motivated by love of nation. But I think that love of nation in the Trust has become actively, national self-loathing. And that's really the state of modern Britain. And with the Trust, I mean, what we've done is we've actually entrusted our national heritage to those people who actually actively despise our national heritage. And it's, it's utter madness.
Have these people wanted to take over charities like the National Trust for their political ends, or is it just something that happens? Is it just the type of people who work in charities?
This has been part of the long march through the institutions, that people need to understand that Britain is now a post-revolutionary society. So the buildings that house our institutions look the same, but the people who now run them bear no comparison to the generations who lovingly built and ran them. They are cuckoos in the nest, and we need to understand that. And of course, once you realize that, of course, that explains completely why, the National Trust and others have crudely tried to denigrate our national heroes and link them and their houses to colonialism and slavery, as they ludicrously tried to do.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Conservative MPs have finally chosen their top two for the leadership. And now, it's over to the members. Join me, Christopher Hope, tonight as Kemi Badenoch and Robert Jenrick are quizzed by Conservative Party members and myself at our GB News leadership event.
And afterwards, join me, Patrick Christys, with a live studio audience and a star panel as we discuss what it means for the Conservative Party and what it means for you. Decision time, the race to lead, from 7 p.m. tonight. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Conservative MPs have finally chosen their top two for the leadership. And now, it's over to the members. Join me, Christopher Hope, tonight as Kemi Badenoch and Robert Jenrick are quizzed by Conservative Party members and myself at our GB News leadership event.
And afterwards, join me, Patrick Christys, with a live studio audience and a star panel as we discuss what it means for the Conservative Party and what it means for you. Decision time, the race to lead, from 7 p.m. tonight. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At 9:21, Andrew Pearce and Beverly Turner are on at 9:30. Morning, you two.
Good morning.
I'm being all formal.
Morning.
We're gonna try-
Yes, that's okay. I don't
We're
mind.
going to try and
Beverly
get to the
from time
bottom of whether the government is going to revive the Birmingham to Manchester crew linked to the HS2, which of course the government scrapped last year when Rishi Sunak's act. Do you remember some of the money, by the way, was going to be spent on potholes? 8 billion of it was going to be spent on potholes. Not 1 penny of that money has been spent on potholes.
We were also talking about potholes this morning, coincidentally. I don't know whether that was deliberate, Andrew.
It was.
Because car insurance in this country has absolutely rocketed.
Yeah.
Some people are paying 12 times more for their car insurance than they were a year ago. Guess why? All the claims over potholes.
Actually,
also, the insurance companies are greedy.
The insurance system is crazy, actually, isn't it?
Yeah,
I mean, you've got to look. Shopping around, I've just had my house insurance halved.
Because you shopped around.
By shopping around.
Have to.
They should be offering you sensible deals.
Yeah, they should be. We're also going to be looking at the disastrous interviews that Kamala Harris has been doing in America.
She's so ghastly.
Overnight, she has.
She can't hold a
come
sentence
across so
together.
bad.
How is she a senior prosecutor?
You could say that about all the candidates, all 3 of them.
The point is, she would not be the Democratic candidate if they hadn't taken so long to topple Biden.
Very difficult for her to say we need to change things when actually her and Biden have been in power for 3 years.
Well, except has she? I suppose the argument would be as VP, you don't really do.
Yeah, but she was in charge of immigration, and the big failure of the Biden administration, a bit like the Tory government here, immigration.
And she's still blaming Trump.
Yeah.
In all of the interview responses that we will have a look at, her answer to everything is everything has been bad for the last 10 years because of Donald Trump.
Yeah.
So she has nothing else. She isn't even saying I would be different to Biden. She's just...
Oh, no, she has said that, though, to be fair. She said it's going to be a new administration, not a continuation.
But she won't say anything that is remotely critical of Joe Biden.
Well,
she can't.
But when she does interviews, she struggles to string a sentence together. It is extraordinary. She is so inarticulate.
Yeah, she did well in the debate.
She did. She stuck to the script.
Yeah, she was well prepped, wasn't she?
Yeah, that was the point. And Trump was bad.
And a bit of royal news as well this morning. Obviously, Meghan and Harry buying this house in Portugal, which is obviously Eugenie and Brooke Banks. Is it Hugh Jack's husband?
He's marketing director there, isn't he? So they've obviously got a discount.
Well, come on.
Cheapskates.
It's right, Sam, isn't
Bet
it?
they've got the discount.
See, that's the politics of envy.
Cheapskates.
Yeah, I would like a house somewhere like that. Be nice.
It'd be nice, wouldn't it? Maybe you could pop in.
Yeah.
Yeah, house guest.
Right,
Thanks,
you two. See you in a little bit.
See you at 9:30, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there, and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. A much brighter day today for most of us. Sunny spells far and wide. Still some showers around, particularly across some western parts. But actually, for many, it's a dry start to the day. We've got the last of Wednesday's rain clearing from the Northern Isles, and just some showers following in for Northern Ireland, parts of southern and western Scotland, Wales and the southwest. These showers will be hit and miss. In between, there'll be some sunshine. The best of the sunshine across the Midlands, eastern and southeastern England, and it will feel mild once again, but not quite as mild as Wednesday, so highs of 16 to 19 Celsius. There is the chance of some thicker cloud and some outbreaks of rain moving into the far southeast by the end of the day, and we'll still have those showers affecting parts of central and western Scotland as well. But as you can see, plenty of clear spells as we go into the evening. Northern Ireland, mixture of clear spells and showers. 1 or 2 showers for Cumbria, parts of Wales and the southwest, but plenty of fine weather through central and eastern parts of the UK. Now, with clear skies widely overnight, it's going to be a cooler night compared with recent nights. A few mist and fog patches are possible, and some patchy cloud, particularly across western parts, especially of the hills. Otherwise, for many, it's a fine start to Friday. Temperatures of 8 to 12 Celsius typically first thing, and feeling pleasant enough in any early sunshine. But things are going to turn more unsettled. Initially for Northern Ireland and western Scotland, we'll see rain and wind arrive through the morning. The rain moves into Wales and the southwest, the rest of Scotland and eventually northern England, whilst the winds strengthen across many western and northwestern parts. 60 mile-an-hour wind gusts for northwest Scotland, but it stays sunny with lighter winds in the southeast.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel. Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In Murray, the A941 is partly blocked by an accident on Elgin Road at Lossiemouth, causing delays. In South Yorkshire, the A635 is closed each way between the Hickleton Crossroads and Marr after an accident yesterday evening. On Merseyside, the A5